Good morning. We have quorum, and I will call the 11th meeting of Scarborough Community Council to order. Welcome to all members of Community Council and, of course, to members of the public and the media. We acknowledge that today we are meeting on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If so, please indicate the item number and the nature of interest. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the Scarborough Community Meeting on November 5th, 2019? Councillor Ainsdale, all those in favor? Carried. We'll now proceed with the rundown of the agenda. Members, if you wish to hold an item, please state your name and say hold. For items with speakers, I will hold these items. Item 11.1 is the reading circle with Bridlewood Library. I will hold. Councillor Janice, would you like to hold? For speakers? Item 11.2 is assigning the ceremonial name Scarborough Way, and which will be assigned to Military Trail between Morningside Avenue and Ellesmere Road. I'd like to move that item. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Item 11.3, designation of fire routes. An amendment to Chapter 880 Fire Routes 1411 Warden Avenue and 601 to 607 Milner Avenue. It's Councillor Thompson, Councillor Lyon.
I'm good with it. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Thompson moves it. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 11.4, application to remove a private tree, 30 Ainsdale Road. There are speakers. Councillor Thompson, would you like to hold it?
Oh, yes, of course.
11.5, 2993 to 3011 Sheppard Avenue East and 1800 to 1840 Pharmacy Avenue. Official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, preliminary report. Councillor Karygiannis, it's your
I'd like to move staff recommendations.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. 11.6, 3850 to 3900 Sheppard Avenue East and 2350 to 2362 Kennedy Road, zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications, preliminary report.
Staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 11.7, 4631 Steeles Avenue East and 04753 Redley Avenue zoning amendment application, preliminary report.
Staff recommendations, Chair.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 11.8, minor arterial and collector road speed limit reductions as part of Vision Zero speed management strategy.
Hold, please.
Okay. Item 11.9, always stop control Lord Roberts Drive and Wainfleet Road.
Supposed to call me out.
Would you like to hold it, Councillor Thompson?
No, I'd like to move the staff recommendation with thanks to staff. Thanks.
Okay, great. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 11.10, school zone review, Bernadine Street. Councillor Thompson?
Just a quick question to staff, if I could. It's really super quick to transportation staff. The school was asking to have the reduction in terms of the distance. I think it's like from 15 meters to 11 meters. Can that be done, Zach?
Through the chair, we reviewed that request, and based on the distances, we decided that it was adequate to keep 15 meters, and to accommodate the school's request for 4 buses, they do have adequate space, which we've allotted.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Madam Chair. I can move the staff recommendation again with thanks, and to ensure that this school zone is obviously will be much safer for the young people, the children, and everyone who travel this area. Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 11.11, Always Stop Control, Wishing Well Drive and Farm Crest Crescent. Would you like to
Hold.
hold for speakers? Item 11.12, Left Turn Prohibition, 2621 Midland Avenue. There's also speakers.
Hold.
Item 11.13, Left Turn Prohibition, 2201 McCowan Road. Councillor Lai?
I move staff recommendation.
All those in favor? Opposed? Item carries. 11.4, Lane Designations, Bushby Drive and Grangeway Avenue. Councillor Ainsdale?
I'll move the recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Item carries. 11.5, Traffic Control Signals, Scarborough Golf Club Road at Confederation Drive. Councillor Ainsdale, hold for speakers. Yep. Item 11.16, Various Matters Relating to 939 Warden Avenue. Councillor Thompson?
Madam Chair, I'd like to hold that item. We have some speakers, and I wondered, Madam Chair, just since we have no timed item other than the vote, I believe, wonder if we can ask that this item be the first item of business this morning.
Sure.
Is everybody okay with that? Oh, we also have a presentation from the Reading Circle at 11.1. Could you want to do it after that one?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah,
Great.
thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Item 11.17, I will hold. That will be the first order of business. So that takes us to item 11.17. So the first item of business is election of the chair. Members, are there any nominations for chair?
I'll move,
Councillor Ainsdale.
I'd like to move Councillor Karygiannis.
Councillor Ainsdale has nominated Councillor Karygiannis. I'm calling for nominations again. Are there any further nominations for the chair? I'm calling nominations for a second time. Are there any further nominations for the chair? I am calling nominations for a third and final time. Are there any further nominations for the chair? Hearing no further nominations, I declare that the nominations are now closed. As Councillor Karygiannis is the only nominee, he is declared chair of Community Council. Do we need to do the... welcome to Chair Councillor Karygiannis, and I am happy to switch seats with you.
The first one. Oh, thanks. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I think the first item up is 11.1, Reading Circle. We do have some speakers, and I understand our first speaker is Sue Wong. No, okay. Your name was listed, but anyway, okay. Crystal Chan? I have Crystal Chan, Eric Chan, Helen Liu, and Mary Zhao. Are you presenting all together? Okay, each one of you is allowed 5 minutes. That's 20 minutes, but if you can, we'll greatly appreciate it. Go ahead, please.
Hello, I hope you're all having a wonderful morning. I want to thank you all for coming today to listen to our presentation. My name is Helen Liu. I'm a grade 10 student in the pre-IB program at Victoria Park CI. I'm here today with Sue Wong, who will be manning the computer, Crystal Chan, Eric Chan, and Mary Zhao. We're here to talk about Reading Circle. So, a brief history. Reading Circle was founded 13 years ago in 2006. It's a community-based nonprofit reading program in the Scarborough Agincourt area. We offer a free 90 minutes of reading and literacy services for children aged 4 to 12 at Bridlewood Library from October to May. And along with our reading and literacy services, we also provide active and engaging activities that reflect different weekly themes. For example, last week our theme was the food drive, so we had a presentation. So we had a presenter come in who constantly volunteered at the food drive to talk to the children. and they did an activity of sorting items that would be donated to the food drive to help them gain a better understanding of what would be considered a perishable food and a non-perishable food. And we also enable local high school students, such as me and Mary, to earn their volunteer hours and develop important skills such as communication, teamwork, engaging with young children, and leadership. So, our mission in Reading Circle is to promote child literacy in the community and to create a love of reading among children. And our vision is to ensure that every child will know how to read and to offer opportunities for local youth to engage with school-age children through books and literacy activities. So now Mary will speak.
Hello, my name is Mary Zhao. I'm a grade 10 student at Sir John A. Macdonald, and I'm also a director of the Reading Circle Board committee. So, as you can see from the slide, we included some pictures that showcase what we do at Reading Circle. So, in the first picture, we have MP Jean Yip talking about the government of Canada. In this picture, we have Helen reading to two little girls. Underneath that, we have Dr. Rafi Choljan talking about oral health. In the next picture, we have Danny reading to two boys. Again, that's Dr. Rafi Choljan. And we have Jackie Dong thanking him on behalf of Reading Circle for his presentation on oral care. This picture was taken during our 10th anniversary, where we had a poster board that had thank you notes from all the little kids. In this picture, we have Eric reading to two kids. This picture, we have Rihanna, another youth volunteer, receiving a card from her reading buddy. Over here, we have Arlene Chan talking about Asian Heritage Month. As some of you may know, she is the daughter of Jean Lump, who was an activist for Chinese rights. So it was an honor to have her come over to talk about Asian culture. And in the same week, we also did a chopstick activity where the children would use chopsticks to pick up different items so they would understand how to use the chopsticks. We also participated in the marshmallow challenge. So each group would get pasta and some marshmallows, and it was a contest to see who would make the tallest structure. Over here, we have Jackie and Jackson leading an activity. Jackie is studying at York University to become a teacher, and Jackson wants to go into nursing. Here we have Dr. Ralphie Choljan's children, Will and his little brother, leading a tech activity. Even though they're only in 7th grade, they did a good job on their presentation. We were making clay sculptures for Mother's Day as a gift. Over here, we were learning about problem solving for Mental Health Week. And this is, again, Helen reading to Brianna, who was having a difficult time during that week. once she came to Reading Circle, she felt better. Over here is Kurt reading to Sunny. So, how does Reading Circle help the Toronto Public Library? So firstly, we promote the Toronto Public Library and their services in the community. We offer free community reading service at the Bridlewood Library branch for over 14 years now, and it costs the library almost nothing except for the use of the program area in the library space. Approximately 50 children and youths total come to the library every week from October to May. This has helped the Bridlewood Library become one of the busiest branches in Toronto, according to the 2017 statistics. Now I'll pass it on to Crystal Chan.
Hi, my name is Crystal. I'm in my last year of social work at York University, and I'm also the treasurer in the Reading Circle board. I'll be continuing on the benefits and talking about some issues that affect Reading Circle and some requests that Reading Circle has. So benefits to Toronto Public Library. By partnering with Reading Circle, there's a recognized community reading program in Scarborough Asian Court, known to the elementary school and also to high schools. We also provide leadership development for local youth volunteers, and it also helps youth volunteers to improve their communication skills. And it encourages parents, grandparents, and youth to come visit Toronto Public Library weekly. So some issues that are affecting Reading Circle. The Toronto Public Library did not include us, Reading Circle, in their 2020 to 2024 strategy planning. Reading Circle in August 2019 was told that we may not be able to continue to do our weekly reading programs after May 2020, as there are other programs that Toronto Public Library wants to offer at Bridlewood Library. And until now, Toronto Public Library has not informed Reading Circle any proposal, other programs that they're planning after May 2020. And as you can see, that's Bridlewood's November program list that they have throughout the month that I will talk about later in the slide. So other issues that are affecting is for our youth volunteers who are mostly under 18, they are required to have a police background check. And what I know is the Toronto Police cannot disclose any personal information of our youth anyways to the Toronto Public Library. And Toronto Public Library's management mentioned the Bridlewood Library has limited program space. Toronto Public Library's senior management has never visited us or consulted us, Reading Circle, during the past 13 years that we've been there at Bridlewood. So there's like a lack of communication when they were making their policy that is affecting us, Reading Circle. And continuing on some other issues, the Toronto Public Library's management is concerned that Bridlewood Library has too many child programs, which was shown earlier, but from that list, there's no repeated programs like ours that are youth-led. But however, Toronto Public Libraries management acknowledges our program. And yeah. So our request is to help us to get help from the Scarborough counselors for our reading circle activity after May 2020, and to require Toronto Public Library to consult with the Toronto Police when reviewing the Toronto Public Library's policy for the requests of police background checks for the youth volunteers who are under 18, since it's unnecessary for them to have one. And also to add Reading Circle to the list of Toronto Public Library's program, because we're not on the list right now, and to encourage the Toronto Public Library senior management team to come visit us and learn more about our programs and and discuss with us when they're changing their policies. And now Eric will talk about the pictures.
Hello, my name is Eric. I did my first year of college in Seneca doing art fundamentals. So these pictures, the first one on the top left is Catherine, one of the librarians in Bridlewood Mall. And she's reading a book to all the kids. The next picture is Dr. Cheskis. He's an optometrist. He came with his kids, his two kids, William, and he did a presentation about eyes and did an activity. That is Abby from Scotiabank, also from Bridlewood Mall. She was teaching the kids about finance. That was one of our Easter activities where we put candies into eggs and we get the kids to take home. That picture is the kids doing activities, drawing activity. That's one of the volunteers, Rachel. She's reading to 3 kids. That's another volunteer, Peter. He's in grade 10 last year. He was new to Canada and he was practicing his communication skills. That's more kids doing puzzles. And the last one is a gardening activity where we put seeds and give it to the kids to take home. This is firefighter Marianne. She came 2 weeks ago to Reading Circle, and she was teaching everyone about fire safety and fire preventions. And she was a really great role model to the kids. And she also gave out activities that the kids did and to take home as well. There's one of the kids wearing the firefighter hats to feel the experience of being a firefighter. This was last week at Reading Circle, where Joe came from food bank to teach all the kids about the food bank and all the stuff you can. Yeah. And we also did activities as well, like Simon Says, and we did a puzzle challenge as well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just wanted to understand a little clearer the concern about the background check. The background check, what's the challenge? What's the issue?
The issue is most of our volunteers are under 18, so we don't think there's a necessary for them to do a background check.
Because they're under 18?
Yeah, and if And since, like, if they do something, the Toronto Public Library can't disclose or the Toronto Police can't disclose anything to the Toronto Public Library.
Okay, so because they're minors, the information cannot be released, is that the issue?
No, the issue is we don't find it necessary for them to do a background.
Okay, so I get that, but if the police were to do a background check as part of the rules, that information would be provided to your organization, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm trying to get clarification. Ms. Wong, maybe you can help.
Okay.
So thank you.
So, Councilor
Just wanted to get
Thompson,
clarification
so
on
there's
that.
two parts of the police background check that is a concern to Reading Circle. Number one, until recently, Councilor Thompson, Toronto Public Library require, as all the speakers you saw on the list of calendar, including Toronto Police,
Right.
coming to speak to the children, to do police background check. It was so challenging.
Right.
These are the same officer going to our Toronto District School Board, Toronto Catholic District School Board, all the school board to do police background check. So we challenged them.
Okay.
So they now rescinded. For all the young people, like you just saw Helen
Yes.
and Mary, they're all under 18. So the process get the police background check takes 4 to 6 weeks. That delays the whole starting of Reading Circle. That's number one. Number two, the police cannot share with us because we have provincial and federal legislation. The Youth Justice Act prohibit the Toronto Police tell us if there is criminal activity or any information. All they do is this piece of paper sends back to the child's home, the student's home, the student volunteer home, say clear. That paperwork and the stamp and the administration cost the taxpayers money to do this process.
But isn't that the issue, though? If you are checking to see whether or not someone passed a background check, does it really matter in terms of the detailed information as to what the issue associated with whatever activities was? Don't you simply want to know so that when young people are dealing with issues that a person has been cleared? Would you not want to know that?
Of course, we want to know. Safety
So
is
how
a
would you
priority.
know?
The fact is, we know that any organization have young people under 18. Like, for example, we have students going to workplaces for take a child to work, okay? They don't do police background check, okay?
Well, that's quite different, quite frankly.
But the fact is, Toronto Public Library has this policy dealing with police background check is a challenge.
I see. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Any further? Councilor Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you tell me a bit, you were saying that the Toronto Public Library, they want to use the space as well. Have they told you what they're interested in using it for?
No, they haven't. Up to now, they haven't told us what their plans are.
You haven't had any nothing from the library about what they want to use the space for?
They haven't. We have asked before to give us a plan, but they haven't gave us anything back.
Okay. Has anybody from the Reading Circle called the branch manager at the very minimum and said, hey?
We met with them before. We had a meeting with them, with the senior management, and we talked about, we asked them to give us a updated program, but they haven't.
Okay. So you had a meeting, you've been doing this for 14 years, but they really haven't elaborated on.
And recently we have met with them. the
Okay.
Senior management.
And could you talk a bit about in a personal way, how volunteering in the Reading Circle has been helping you?
This is my 4th year volunteering at Reading Circle, and I don't do it for volunteering hours because I'm in university now. So I think it's just for fun and for more experience with other youth and other younger children.
Okay. And You showed us lots of pictures that, and you feel that children are really benefiting from the reading circle.
They have a lot of fun. And yeah, they're all excited to come every week because we have similar kids coming back every week.
Okay. And if you weren't if you couldn't do the reading circle in Bridlewood, if for whatever reason the library decided not to support what, do you have other facilities in the community that you could go to that you can use? I know, like at Bridlewood, the room's rent-free.
No.
No. Okay. And then, and the same question, I guess, to Crystal and Eric. You're both at university and college, which I think is pretty impressive. You're still volunteering. Are there other kids your age that are in university and college volunteering as well?
Yes. They're mostly at the supervising positions. But yeah, we have a few that comes back. There's one that comes back from Guelph every week.
Okay.
Yeah.
They come from Guelph University every weekend to volunteer?
Yes.
Really? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chair.
Any other questions of the deputants? Well, since it's in my area, I have a few questions, if I may. And either any of the speakers or Sue, if you are a little guy, a little girl, 3 or 4 years old, you'd want to know, or your parents would want to know the person that's there mentoring you or reading with you, that they do not have a questionable past. Would I be incorrect in that?
Yeah. They know because we've been there for 14 years.
No. But anybody can join your reading circle that can have a questionable past, like future. Wouldn't the parents of the kids that are coming to reading circle want to know that this individual, she or he, might have some difficulties?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But Counselor, here's the issue. The Toronto Police cannot share with us the information. That's
Have
the
you
issue.
reached out to the Toronto Police Services? Let's bring this up to see what it can be done and what they can do, and have they replied back to you?
So I wrote to your office recently. I have not heard back because when this new policy came into place, that was 3 years ago from Toronto Public Library, they never consulted us. They just told us.
Just to make it clear, through my office,
Yes.
you've reached out to me. I have sent a note to the chief, and you were copied on that note. We have not heard back yet.
No.
Correct?
That's right.
All right. Do you have any difficulty? Does any of the group have any difficulty with the children over the age, or with the adolescents or adults over the age of 18 getting police clearance?
No, we have no problem with that
Okay.
at all.
Have you reached out to the librarian to see if there's any, is Bridlewood the only location you're interested in, or have you looked at other locations? Have you reached out to the librarian to talk to them about Age Court or Steele's library?
Yes, we have. We have communicated that to the,
Have they responded?
no.
How long have you known that this 2020 was coming your way, like a hard, fast rule was
They
coming your way?
just told us this past August.
Okay.
And we're quite familiar with all the other locations from the churches. They even suggest, meaning the library management team, suggested we go to the Toronto District School Board to open the school on Saturday. So you and I both know how expensive it is to open a school after hours.
Indeed it is. What would you want us to what is the object of at the end of the day, what would you want from us here today?
Well,
Councilor, do you have a motion that? They have suggestions. Okay, all right.
I believe that you saw the presentation from the four of the 25 youth that currently with Reading Circle. And I believe that this program, it is free to every child who comes to the program, that it is important. It is led by young people. You saw the calendar in your package. There's a yellow calendar of our schedule for until May 2020. You also saw in the calendar, we had to postpone the presentation with PC Claudia Benecki because Toronto Public Library wanted her to do a police background check on her background, even though she's currently a police officer at 42 Division. okay?
That sounds kind of a little bit
Okay,
over the top.
so that's what happened. So they recently changed that policy. And then most recently, we had the Toronto firefighter to come. They asked for the same rules to be applied. So we said, their first responder, they already had the police background check. So we are desperately want to make sure that 50 young people coming to Reading Circle every Saturday at Bridlewood Library can continue after May 2020.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Okay. I'm going to be at the yeah, is there? Would, can we ask the librarian to come out to, and if we got any questions, would that be okay with the rest of you? Okay, is that okay for us to ask an outside city staff person to answer questions that we might have? You're the chair. Well, I'm asking for your, you know. We're good? Okay. Okay. Would you come down and thank you very much. Appreciate it. Come on down, please. Thank you, ma'am. Would you please let us know who you are and welcome? We'll give you 5 minutes, and then we might have some questions, or you want to take questions immediately, or you want to make a statement.
Good morning, Council. My name is Michelle Allen. I'm the area manager for Fairview, Agincourt, and Barbara From, and Bridlewood is one of my 14 branches. And I am pleased to take questions. Sure. I have been meeting with Sue Wong and the Reading Circle over the past 6 months to almost a year. So I am well versed in the situation.
Questions of Michael? Councilor Thompson, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So the program is a program that is of value to the community?
Mm-hmm. This program has been going on for almost 14 years, and it has brought value to the community.
Right.
The young people are very committed.
Yes.
The challenge is that Bridlewood, as they mentioned, is one of our busiest neighborhood branches of all 81 branches. And it really doesn't have a dedicated program space. We've kind of cordoned off a section. And this program occupies every Saturday from October to May. So when it's in progress, of course, it means we can't offer anything else. The community itself is growing. It's becoming more diverse. And we have other demographics that need programming that we can't offer because this is taking up such space. And also, over the past 14 years, as the library's grown and evolved, we offer other programs in other locations that duplicate this service. So we have programs for children. We have leadership opportunities where youth can relate to children in other programs nearby. So because of that, we have evaluated the situation and decided that after 2020, it is not feasible to offer that program in that space anymore.
Just that location, but you're not suggesting that the program is not it's not of value. You're just saying at that location you can.
In that particular area,
yes,
because the programs that are duplicated are offered at the nearby Agincourt and Steele's locations. So having it anywhere in that district would be a challenge.
I see, for the library. Could you speak to what does the library do with respect to its volunteers? You use volunteers at the library?
We use volunteers. We run on volunteers almost.
Do they have to do a background check?
We have to do background checks. All our programs, all our partners, we require background checks.
Right. And
there was an error in communication with the Reading Circle, and at one point we did tell them that police and firefighters did require. That was a miscommunication.
Okay, because that was my next thing, because I'm not aware of that to be correct.
It is not.
Okay, good.
And we have since communicated that to the Reading Circle.
You have communicated
We have communicated that police and fire services do not require police background check.
Recently.
Yes.
But that's not what was said this morning. It was stated that they are required to have it, but you said you've communicated that to them.
Just last week.
Okay, but nonetheless, you had the information. Okay, so let me just fill it through on
Yes.
my questioning. So do you have young people that are, let's say, under the age of 17 or
So
volunteers?
young people under the age of 18, we don't require a vulnerable police record check.
Okay.
That is a bit more in-depth. We require that of adults. But for young people, we do require a regular police background check, just to make sure their record is clear.
Right, so
Because they're dealing with children and vulnerable populations.
so it doesn't take as much time. That's the
That is
difference?
that is the difference. And we require this of all our partners.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here. You've helped me out immensely. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions of the librarian? Councillor Ainsley.
Morning, Michelle. So they've been running this program for 14 years, and so from the library's perspective, so A, you don't have the space anymore at Bridlewood to use it because of the usage of Bridlewood's gone up.
Yes.
But you're saying they're also duplicating other Toronto Public Library programs at Agent Court?
Yes. At Agent Court and Steeles and at some of the nearby locations as well.
Okay, and the
Within that catchment area, I should say.
Okay, and the distance from and I'm only asking because there seems to be a lot of children using Bridlewood, so I'm trying to understand. So if they don't do it at Bridlewood and there's programming at Agent Court, what's the distance these children may be going to get to Bridlewood from Agent Court?
It's easy to say it's not a huge distance, but everyone has their own personal challenges when it comes to navigating the city. There is about, I would say, a 10 to 15 minutes drive between the branches. Okay. By transit, of course, it'll take a little longer. Yeah. And of course, some residents, they walk. So, taking transit or driving can be a challenge, and we appreciate this.
Okay, and the Bridlewood and Agent Court are both on bus lanes?
They are both on bus lanes.
Okay. And the other comment that the young adults made that made the presentation this morning was they said that, so they've been doing this program for 14 years. The library did its strategic plan, and they didn't feel that they were properly consulted.
When we did our strategic plan review, which started this year, we put out a number of requests to the public in general. We didn't go after each individual program partnership, but we offered a lot of ways to communicate. We had online surveys, we did a letter campaign, we reached out individually, so people had a chance to communicate that way. It's very challenging to, when you reach out to a specific partner, because of course every agency has their own requests and visions and mandates. And when you're dealing in a population the size of the city of Toronto, it becomes quite a navigation pool to balance one's needs versus somebody else's needs. So everything went into the calculation. And of course, we also look at the demographics at our area. So we know that there is a large senior population, there's a large newcomer population, and we know from the staff and from statistics that we get a lot of requests for technological help for these demographics. And we have staff who are skilled to offer it, but of course, we don't have the space to do so. So again, all of those considerations go into forming of our plan.
Okay. And then the young adults that were here, it seems to be a very vibrant program. They've been doing it for 14 years. If the library decides not to continue it after May of 2020, is there an opportunity for these young adults to volunteer at Agent Court or Steeles to help with similar programming?
Absolutely. Our volunteer program is open to all applicants.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions of the librarian? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Speakers.
I want to thank all of the young adults for coming in this morning. I'm on the library board. To have a program like this for 14 years, we really appreciate it. We appreciate all the work and efforts that they put into being here and the volunteering that they do. And I'll take it. I understand that these requests that they've asked for, we can't move here as a community council, but I will certainly bring it to the library board's attention.
So you're asking for a receipt of the
Yeah, I think that.
this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Any further speakers? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry, thanks, Michael. All those in favor of receiving the information? Carried. Yeah, I think so. Thank you. Next item that we agreed to move on is SC 1116, various matters relating to 939 Warden Avenue, and we do have speakers. I have 3 speakers, Stephen Graham, David Piper, and Roy Emblers. Did I say that right? If folks like to come down, do you want to combine your time, or do you want to speak individually? We can ask individual questions. You got... So if that's okay, we'll allow all of you to speak, and then we'll ask you questions all together?
Sure.
Okay, you're allowed 15 minutes, but if you can help us, just narrow it down a bit, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, councilors. My name is Stephen Graham. I am the president of Branch 617 of the Royal Canadian Legion. We're also known as the Dam Busters. I came here today to give you a bit of our background, which is we're dedicated to supporting veterans and senior citizens and multiple community groups. We have been having nothing but problems with 939. Some of these problems just recently stemmed from a variance that was denied by the council. We have now been blocked or blinded on our corner by this hotspot auto. We've also had our front sign blocked intentionally. This goes to character. This is the way it's been since day one with this gentleman. He first walked into our organization and shook our hand, and we believed in the good neighbor policy. We tried everything that we possibly could to accommodate the gentleman, and it's been nothing but a nightmare ever since then. He has done everything from park bins on our property to bring construction equipment on our property. At one point, the city came in, not because we called him, because we didn't, and told him he had no right of way onto the back part of his property and that he was not allowed to use ours. At this point, the city shut him down. After that, he made some agreement with the city that our property was not to be used, not to be touched, not to be gone near. They allowed him to continue building. After he finished his building, the trespassing continued, the use of our land continued. We have nothing but garbage all over the place now because of this gentleman. They plow snow onto our property. And like I said, when the variance was denied to him for an extension onto his building, what he did was he went out and he actually measured the land line on the very corner and parked a shipping container there, then put his van there to make sure that we were blinded even worse. We have had cars have accidents there where he had building material sticking out and it was nighttime. Most of our people are senior citizens. They have a hard enough time seeing as it is. And we had one woman who hit a bunch of steel beams that he had sitting up and caused $400 or $500 worth of damage. He berated our president who was trying to talk to him. And basically, I won't use the language he used, but it was not very nice. Another time she tried to talk to him and he asked her what her problem was. Was she having a monthly problem? And I'm being nice when I say that. This person has again, absolutely zero respect for anybody. He brought his construction equipment on, blocked us in the middle of we do memorial services for veterans, fallen veterans, and things like that. And our good neighbor policy was, please call us and let us know, and we'll gladly let you come in and, but if we have a function going on, you can't do that. And this function was a funeral service for a veteran. It was a memorial service. Next thing we know, we got dump trucks, we got tractors, we got you name it, it was coming into our parking lot. We've been trying to get along with this man. We tried in the past and it just has not worked out. He wants everything for him and nothing for anybody else. we're, as I said at the variance meeting, we're at our wits' end. We don't know what to do with this guy. We're a nonprofit organization. We can't afford expensive lawyers. And with that, I'll leave you to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, councilors. My name is Dave Piper. I'm a 20-plus year member of the branch. As our president has stated, we've had issues with this man from day one. We have also had problems in the past 20-odd years with some of our other neighbors, but we've always been able to resolve them, you know, friendly, peacefully. Hasn't been an issue. He mentioned the garbage. He mentioned the damage. Right now, just leaving the branch this morning, there is shipping containers parked on our parking lot. The only other thing I'd like to add personally was I was coming back from poppy campaigning and just to drop off some boxes, pick up some supplies. Somebody from this hotspot organization was cutting through their parking lot in order to access our driveway to get onto Bertrand Avenue. This is our driveway. It's not a shared access. I almost ran into the guy. However, thank you very much.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roy Emberley. I've been a member of the branch for 27 years. This neighbor, our comrades just spoke about it, is not a very nice person. He treats our ladies members very badly. He swears at them and curses at them, and garbage all over the place, and just not a very good neighbor. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the speakers? Councilor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, thank you. I guess the three of you may want to stand at the mic and, or Mr. Graham, you can answer the questions. So, you're having problems with this neighbor. What's the name of the company?
Hotspot Auto.
Hotspot Auto. And how long have they been there?
I would say about 3 years, 2 to 3 years.
What was there before Hotspot Auto?
It was Asian furniture store.
Okay. I wonder, Mr. Chair, if I can just maybe just get a photo up of the site. So this was the site, this was what was there before Hotspot Auto?
Yes, absolutely.
And
they were great people.
You had no problem with them?
No.
And so that was the building?
Yes.
And there's another building that's been put in place, right? The new building. Hotspot Auto, is that correct?
That's it.
Can you move it over just a little bit? That's a new building, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a huge building.
That's a warehouse.
Were you aware of any building permits that was permitted to this particular business to develop this?
Absolutely not.
Server building?
No, we were not notified of anything.
No, not at all. And so at the side of your building, their building, is your entrance to the Legion, is that correct?
Correct.
And so you're having challenges entering the Legion because of the trailers that are parked. Some portion of it is on the Legion property?
Yes.
And trucks are parked on there as well?
Yes.
And part of the issue, you spoke about the variance. Part of the issue with respect to variance, it applied for variance to essentially expand their business, their building.
Yes.
That variance was denied because our office issued a letter saying we were not in support. Is that correct?
Correct.
But you didn't actually come to the city and spoke out against or spoke about this at all. Is that correct?
Absolutely not.
So now you are feeling you're being penalized because there's been a refusal of the Committee of Adjustment with respect to the approval for the extension. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this bad neighbor,
yep,
the owner of this site, who is the hotspot that provides auto parts for car repairs across the city and I guess across Scarborough, is creating for you, the Legion, a sightline issue, which is creating unsafety. Is that correct?
Correct.
Furthermore, there are construction material, metal material that are placed in, part of it is their property and the Legion's property in terms of proximity?
Yes.
And so when it snows, can you see this
No.
material?
What happens is once it snows and the road gets plowed,
Yes.
all the snow covers up everything that's there. So we can see it now because the snow hasn't been that deep.
Right.
But once the snow comes in, we're done.
Right. And so, can you tell us the values and why the Legion was created in the first place?
Absolutely.
What do you do as Legion members?
As Legion members, we supply support for veterans and their families. We also support community services, old age services, things like that. We supply as much support as we can for the homeless. We also supply funding for, it's a dog program, and it's for veterans with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So we supply some funding for that. We supply various fundings for various things. And we do the best we can with what we've got to help those who can't help themselves.
So can you then help me, sir? Because some of the conversation that's been communicated regarding how your members have been treated by, is it the owner, the construction workers, or all the above?
It's all the above, and they're all under his orders. We knew one of the contractors because he would come across and he would have a beer with us. And he does all the work for the various hotspot autos. And we told him, and he says, I take my orders from Hatchimo, so he says, I have to do what I'm told.
And is Hatcho here today?
I haven't seen him.
Is there a representative from that company that you know or see here today?
No.
If I were to tell you, sir, that we've informed them of this particular meeting and invited them to attend, would you be surprised?
That he didn't show up? Absolutely not. He has no respect for anybody. I mean, no, I'm just telling you people the way it is. He has zero respect. He wants to do what he wants to do. And
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Graham. I have no further questions.
Any other questions of the deputants? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Question of staff, Mr. Chairman.
Are you in a rush, Counselor? That was going to be my next question.
Oh, but sorry. My apologies.
Questions of staff.
Yeah,
Counselor
I'm in a
Thompson.
rush. I want to get to this. It's been a while. So, to the staff, we saw the first photo of a small building, and then we see the second photo of this very, very large building. Was there a permit required to construct this building?
Sorry, through the chair. Yes, there was.
And was a permit granted at the beginning of the construction of this building?
There was a permit issued on July 14th for 2000.
Sir, my question is whether or not a permit was issued at the start of construction of this building. That was my question.
There was a permit issued. There was some work underway at the start. However, that work was seized.
So there was not a permit issued at the start of the construction activity on this building, is that correct?
That's correct. Through the
Correct.
chair.
So a permit was issued subsequent after notification that work was being done.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes.
All right. So what is the standard practice with respect to a company, organization, someone following the rules with respect to doing any type of major reconstruction of this kind? Is it that they come to the city and ask for a permit or permission to build? Is that the practice?
Okay, so the practice basically is once a proposal is made, they will come in formally to apply for a permit. Part of our process is to review for two conditions. One, that the proposed project meets the building code requirements, which are minimum safety requirements, and the other requirements of applicable law, which would include items such as zoning.
Right. So Mr. Graham and others spoke about a variance matter. Can you tell us what the variance was and the necessity for that at this particular location?
Yeah, through the chair, I'm assuming the variance is for the
You may not be able to answer, but whatever planning staff may be able to answer
No,
the question.
sorry.
Allow the staff person to.
I know, but he's buildings.
Right,
But
but you've asked the
planning-
question, allow him to
Okay.
finish, please.
Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to confirm, is this for the proposed extension?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'll defer to
Another
Dwayne.
person.
Through the
Thank you.
chair. Yeah, the current application with the committee of adjustment is for a rear yard extension. So rear yard setback, and there's a permit application in for that, but it is holding because it currently doesn't comply with this rear yard setback.
I'm sorry, it doesn't?
does not comply with the zoning requirements.
Okay, so then they would need a variance permission.
Correct.
And what is the impact to the Legion with respect to this wall? How close is that to their property?
The rear yard setback is actually not facing the building that the Legion is associated with. It is facing their access route.
So on the, that would be the east?
Correct.
Okay, so does that create a problem for them with respect to construction activities and so on, and the issues that they've raised regarding sightline impediments?
Well, for I probably would have to defer to transportation with respect to site.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I mean, assuming the wall is on private property, I wouldn't really be able to comment on the impacts on sightlines. Our right-of-way setback behind the curb is approximately 4.8 meters.
Okay, that's fine, helpful. There was an unsafe order issued regarding this wall, is that correct? There was a wall that they just tore down without permission, is that correct?
Through the chair, correct, yes. The order was issued as an unsafe order. It actually permitted the owner to either tear down the wall or to come back with an engineer's report to basically tell us if it was in a safe condition or not.
And did you get that report?
There was no report submitted. They went and tore down the wall.
Oh, I see, okay.
So the unsafe order would have been resolved.
Okay, fair enough, thank you. Mr. Chair, those are all the questions I have because of time is run out, I think. It's okay, I think I'm.
All right, any further questions of staff?
Oh, sorry, you said I had 45 seconds? Oh, okay, then I'll use it then, sorry. There is a request by the owner asking for a refund of some fund relating to a side parking. And that side parking notification, councilors are not required to be notified when it relates to commercial property, is that correct, versus a residential area, is that correct?
Through the chair, that's transportation. That is correct. Yes.
Okay, and so if we refund the money, does that mean that they don't proceed with respect to the side parking, or
So at this stage, we've received an application for commercial industrial boulevard parking. The application has been approved in principle, so they've paid the application fee, and then they've also paid the cost to actually install the parking stalls, which includes line markings.
Right.
Right now, we're at the stage where we would be approving and actual licensing those spots.
So just final question, Mr. Chairman. So the boulevard parking, does that have, how close is that to the city lot line? And are there sidewalks in the area now? And if not, is there a plan to put sidewalk in? And if so, will this have an impact in the future with respect to sidewalk to make the area safer for residents?
Okay, I'll start with the first one through the chair. With regards to the setback of the actual parking stalls, those are set back approximately 2 meters behind the curb, so they're set back right against the private property line adjoining the right-of-way. There's a total of 8 parking stalls, and they run along the east side of the property. Currently, there is a future plan to implement new sidewalks on Bertrand Avenue on the flankage as part of a capital works program. It's currently planned for 2021. And at that time, we would have to reevaluate the commercial boulevard parking. Yeah. Yes, that would be correct.
Any speakers? Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I just asked staff to put the motion on the floor. And it's the unfortunate thing, this is the only motion I can move, which is to ask that we be notified when these requests are made. Mr. Chairman, the Legions are an important part of our heritage. They reflect the veterans and those who have fought in wars to ensure that our safety and our freedom, which we take for granted today. And what we actually have, and this Legion, I'm very familiar with them, Dam Busters. I'm there all the time, and with their varying events, they work to help young people and so on. So I'm really, really concerned with respect to how they're being treated in our community by a business that has moved into the area, has done everything that they can to do whatever they wish illegally, in efforts that my office have actually proceeded to speak with them. I think one of the comments by the owner, Hacho Narisian, he told my staff member to lose his phone number, never to call him, don't talk to him about anything, because he doesn't want to talk to us. And so this does not reflect a good neighbor. In fact, it reflects everything that I think one would detest in a person who would be a neighbor, where they don't want to cooperate. But what is more guiling and vile to me is the fact that our veterans have served us so well and have created great opportunities for us to have a better life. And we have someone who comes in with tremendous disregard and disrespect for the community, disrespect for the Legion, quite frankly, and seems to think that none of our rules should essentially have an impact on them. Started the construction of the large facility without any permits, and it was only when we brought it to the attention through the staff that they decided to apply for a permit, because they felt that they can do this unilaterally without any type of approval from the city. It's very disconcerting with respect to how some of our rules are, and I'm going to do a little bit more research, because there's a requirement to do that, because I think that even just on the side perimeter parking, we've heard from the staff and said, well, you know, we're going to basically be putting sidewalks in, and we may have to review this again later on, even though we've given approval today. I don't think approval should have been given. I don't have the ability to stop it in as much as I would like to. I think that when you have an institution like we have the Legions, which is there to serve military families, RCMP and their families, and to promote remembrance, commemorative, events and poppy events that they do, I think that there should be respect conveyed. I also think that it's very disrespectful for an owner of any business, of anywhere, any place, particularly in this city, to be speaking to the bar attendant, the female, and the other members of this Legion with such disrespect and language that I cannot use today, but language that's been communicated. In fact, Legion have taken a log of things that have happened there to their members. Yet we have a business that's operating at 939 Warden Avenue who seem to think that all they're required to do is to provide auto parts to companies to fix cars. And I wonder if you can just put the photo up with the illegal sign that they've actually put on top of that building. I understand that the sign has been deemed to be illegal. I understand that they have been fined. But part of the issue is that we're not doing enough to monitor and follow up with respect to these types of businesses who will operate within our community, not following any rules. So I'm going to basically be suggesting to the staff that we need to do more to monitor and ensure that our rules are followed. I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, I'm quite dismayed with respect to how members of the Legion in my community have been treated. And in fact, the only thing I can do right now is to move a motion that says notify councilors when an application comes forward with respect to side parking and so on. And I think that it's not enough, and I also think that it would be very challenging for the Legion to take this business to court. But I think that there are lawyers who do pro bono work, and maybe we need to kind of reach out to some of them. I'm going to try to help you with that, because I find it totally disrespectful how the Legion, the members, are being treated by this particular business. And I'm going to ensure that I pay attention to what's going on here. This business and the owner have submitted freedom of information for all of my records in terms of my contacts with the Legion, and that's fine, because I'm not going to be intimidated by them, quite frankly. We are going to ensure that they behave themselves and do a better job at being a good neighbor, and I find it disrespectful. I'm surprised that the owner is not here. But for those of you who are buying auto parts from this particular facilities, I want to ask you to question your judgment.
Thank you. Any questions of the mover of the motion? Okay, any further speakers? On the motion, you want a recorded vote, Councilor? You're good? Okay. Opposed? Carried. On the item? Carried. Thank you. Next item is SC 11.4, application to remove a private tree, 30 Ainsdale Road. We have a speaker, Ian Ross.
Am I allowed to put this picture up there or no?
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Ross.
Yep. Do my best here. Thank you. Hello and good morning. My name is Ian Ross. I'm the owner of the house here at 30 Ainsdale Road. I've been the owner for over 30 years. And what I'm here for is to appeal my application to get this walnut tree cut down. I've lived in Scarborough a long time. I love Scarborough. I live, eat, and work in Scarborough. I volunteer quite a bit at the yearly leaf program. I've planted over 350 trees for the last 10 years with my family and company. Anyways, we're having trouble with this walnut tree in the backyard, which was planted in the 70s by my father, has taken over and grown. You can see the size of it anyways. For the first 25 years, I had no trouble maintaining it, trimming it, pruning it, that kind of stuff. As I'm getting older, it's grown up past the hydro lines. It's impeding my neighbor's property. You can see the property line is in the center of his driveway there. It's about 30% on top of his garage, 30% on the back of my house. The tree was planted way too close to the house to begin with, but back then the tree was only 20, 30 feet high. Didn't really matter. But now that it's 60 feet high, it's creating all kinds of problems. When we're in the backyard, we occasionally park a vehicle in the backyard to keep the cars off the street because my kids have grown up, they got cars now. Twice in the last maybe 10 years, we've lost windshields because of the walnuts falling on them. And the eavesdrops too have suffered catastrophic damage, both my neighbors and my house. And my neighbors trimmed back some of the overhanging stuff on his property but can't reach the rest. So we've got some estimates on getting the tree taken down, but we didn't get the permit to do it. So in the meantime, that's why I'm here. I'm here to appeal the permission to cut the tree down. I don't want to cut the tree down. I love the tree. I grew up with the tree. But as I get older, and I'm up in that ladder 3 times a year cleaning out 150 feet of eavesdrop. There's a garage behind the property too. It's tore off the garage eavesdrop. It's because it gets so full, the weight of them, et cetera, et cetera. So now I want to put new eavesdrop up. Before I do that, I'd like to take the tree right down. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Any questions of the deputant? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ross, you like trees?
Yes, I like them a lot.
Yeah.
I can tell you lots about that tree.
Yeah, okay. And the challenge you're having is that the tree, when it loses its leaves or branches falling.
It's actually walnuts. I don't know if you're familiar with the sides of golf balls.
I'm not, but there are leaves on walnut trees as well.
Yes,
right?
lots of them.
What I'm saying with respect to your eavesdrop, I mean,
yes,
the walnuts are another matter because you said about your windshield and so on. But I'm just simply asking about the leaves at the end of the day. They come off and so on. You deal with those, is that correct?
Yes, I have been for a long time.
Right. Are you afraid of the tree falling on your roof? Is that
yes?
part of it?
Actually, just on the weekend we didn't have a big storm, but maybe a branch about 6 feet long. It's very brittle when it gets to the top.
Yeah.
And what happens is the wind breaks a piece off and it falls. It didn't hit nothing. The piece was maybe 8 feet long, 2 inches in diameter, and that's what happens when it comes down. It hits the eavesdrop, and
so it's a healthy tree, though, right?
It's well, when I would say it's healthy, yes.
Yes,
and
okay,
I
fair
also
enough.
say it's over 50 years old.
No, I understand. Fair enough. But there are a lot of 50-year-olds who are healthy, along with trees.
Yes, I am.
Exactly.
I am, yeah.
Right. I just want to make sure because I'm that vintage, so I'm okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So, have you had an arborist come out to deal with the tree, look at it?
To get the permit to cut it down, I had an arborist,
Right.
and they took
What did
care
they
of-
say about the tree? Because I
well-
don't think I have a copy of the report here. I don't see a copy.
Okay. Well, anyways, they don't really say too much. They come and measure it, look at it, et cetera, et cetera. Then they submit it to the city. And then at that time, it was early spring. And then what happened was it rained solid for 5 weeks. So when the city came to take a picture of it, the tree looked beautiful.
Sure.
But anyways, that was just timing on my part. But anyways,
So, Mr. Ross, I can tell you this. Well, I know you.
Yes.
Know you, family, and you're
yes,
a
I
great
know a few
guy.
people here actually.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate that. And while I'm sympathetic to you with respect to the removal of this tree, I can assure you that the sympathy is probably limited to me, but not particularly spun to the other 24 members of council at the
Yes.
downtown council.
That's right. Well, the tree isn't in their backyard.
No, I appreciate that, but they're making a judgment. My
Yes.
question to you, though, even if I were to move a motion here today,
Yes.
and that said that, yes, remove the tree, and you were willing to plant, let's say, 3 or 4 more trees elsewhere
right.
in the
Yeah.
city, it's not going to pass downtown. So I'm just asking through you, what other options do you think would be available to you in terms of dealing with the challenges that you're having with the trees?
Okay. Other than the cost of the and my age and everything,
Sure.
to take care of it and keep cleaning it up. The bylaw is you can only trim back a third of the tree, right? So obviously I want to trim it back on I don't want to impede on my neighbor's property, and behind the house again. I got a thing, and to do that you have to get a company in to do that because you're gonna need something high to reach it. So I've had quotes from $3,000 to $5,000 to prune it, and $5,000 to $8,000 to remove it. So there you go. So once the problem is eliminated, I can plant another tree. Of course, 20 feet west of that tree, which is we already have a spot ready where it can go, and start again. As you can
Okay.
see, the tree up the front, it was taken down in the ice storm in whenever that was. Anyways,
Okay.
the last big ice storm we had, and I've replanted a crabapple tree, and it only grows about 30 feet, so it can't get anything.
Okay,
That one
thank-
in the backyard is totally out of control.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions of the deputant? Thank you. Questions of staff? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Could you comment, please, on this black walnut tree? Is it a healthy tree?
Yes. Sorry. Through the chair, yes, it is healthy.
Mr. Ross has made a number of comments about the limbs falling and potential concern about the safety of the home and so on. Are there mechanism and ways that you could suggest that would minimize that concern that he has?
Regular professional pruning is certainly a recommendation we can always make. When you're dealing with falling walnuts, that's certainly a different challenge to deal with as far as how you work your structures around the tree, how some of that stuff is connected or installed, can certainly minimize your impact.
So how do you deal with fallen walnuts?
Through the chair, you would reinforce your eave troughs, that sort of thing. I mean, there's thousands of walnut trees throughout the city. A few of them get into trouble with their owners over issues. Certainly, not all of them seem to cause endless problems.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes down to things you could handle when you were younger and you can't handle when you're older. These are different ways of maintaining your property at different ages in your life.
And what are some of the ways to maintain or deal with the tree that you could propose to Mr. Ross or to us at this point?
Certainly, having professional assess the tree and maintain the tree is probably the best and most straightforward way of dealing with it.
Okay. But based on your professional judgment, the tree has no challenge with respect to whether or not it's a healthy tree or not it's a healthy tree. Is that correct?
No, as per the private arborist report, which is up here, the arborist there says it was healthy. My staff inspected the tree; they found it to be healthy.
Right.
It's a not a super large. It's a getting to be large tree.
Right.
And all trees will have some branches falling out of them. That's part of the nature of
right. Right. So, and based on your experience, there's no way that you could make a recommendation other than the recommendation that's actually here in front of us.
Correct. As according with the bylaw and the city policies, this is the recommendation I can make. Certainly, council's free to make whatever decisions they choose to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions of staff? Councillor Ainsley.
Could you just comment on in the report, it says, the application indicates the reason for removal or concerns over damage to weeping tiles caused by the tree roots. And we've had, at least in the years I've been here as a counselor, we've reviewed many applications to remove a tree. And one of the things that staff always says when it comes to weeping tile damage is generally because the weeping tiles are already cracked or they're cracked. The moisture, tree roots look for moisture, so they would go into the weeping tiles or the drainage tile system because they're cracked and there's moisture there. Am I remembering that properly or correctly?
Yes, through the chair, councillor. The tree roots are looking for 3 items. They're looking for oxygen, nutrients, and water. There's plenty of water in the weeping tiles. If there is an accumulation of debris in the weeping tiles, you would then get nutrient accumulation, and certainly because the weeping tiles aren't full of water, then there's plenty of air. So, I mean, there's certainly a design issue with weeping tiles because they're supposed to absorb the water from the base of the wall, so they have to have holes in them usually, and then they drain that water away. It's when you get accumulation of debris in them over years, so a brand new weeping tile wouldn't attract the tree roots. However, perhaps a 50-year-old weeping tile probably has a certain amount of debris throughout, and that would certainly attract.
Okay, and tree roots, if they hit an obstacle, as they're growing, trees growing and the tree roots hit an obstacle like a wall or weeping tiles or sidewalk, they're going to go the easiest way they can, right? They're not going to drill through the wall or the drainage pipe or PCP.
Yeah, no, correct. They don't have any actual tools to use, so
no diamond-tipped roots.
Correct. So what they can do, however, is they're fairly about hair diameter. So I mean, certainly they have access to more cracks and holes than you would necessarily see with your own eye. However, they will go the easiest route. A lot of root tips end up dying, and only the ones that find valuable space continue growing.
Okay, and if a root tip was to go into a crack of a weeping tile or a drainage pipe where there's water, so it would, once the tree root's in there and accessing moisture, the tree root's going to expand and cause more damage, correct?
It can expand. Once again, in most cases, that expansion will usually result in the death of the root. However, in some cases, depending on the material it's into, it could cause it to crack further.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, speakers. Councillor Thompson.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask this committee for a deferral on this item. I would like to have an opportunity to speak further with Mr. Ross and our arborists and to see what further actions could be taken and that this matter be brought back in January. I know Mr. Ross. I know him as a really good person in the community. I know him as a person who is not someone who just wants to kill a tree, and obviously he's having some challenges with the tree and so on. I note that if we were to even say that the staff recommendation, which is to deny the request, and we to say, let's approve it here today, it would not pass downtown. It would not be accepted at all. And so I don't believe that he's going to be successful. I don't think he's going to be successful here, and I don't think he's going to be successful downtown. And because I'm obviously familiar with the process, we all are, I think that perhaps we should maybe spend a little time to see whether or not there are some ways to assist Mr. Ross and his family, and through, I know there's an arborist report here and so on, but also just maybe just have a further conversation and to bring this matter back in the new year. So I'm asking that this particular matter be deferred.
Questions of the motion? Okay, seeing none. Any further speakers? All right. All those in favor of deferment to January 8, 2020? On the item? Passed. Thank you. All right, next item is SC 1111. We have two speakers, Always Stop Control Review, Wishenville Drive and Farmcrest Drive. Father Zargarian and Theo Calamares. We'll come back to number 8. Cynthia, Councillor Lai wants us to. Okay, thank you. Father Zargarian, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorary chair and members, thank you very much for this opportunity today to come and to speak about an issue which is very important to my family and my neighbors. I'm Alvan Zargarian. I'm the owner of the property on 141 Wishing Well, as well as the pastor of 920 Progress Avenue Church, Holy Trinity Armenian Church. We moved to this property about 2 years ago, and my family, and I spoke to many of our neighbors, we are all having very much difficulty about the traffic on Wishing Well, and it's getting worse and worse, especially on that intersection, Wishing Well and Farmcrest. There is one stop sign on Farmcrest. As a matter of fact, today I was talking to my neighbor, who is immediate house to that stop sign, and he's telling me, and we see that a lot, people even they don't respect that stop sign. We have a lot of elderly people on our street, children, and the safety of these people, pedestrians and cars, are very important. We would like to make sure that nothing happens to people and pedestrians, especially to children, because of the lack of the stop sign on that very busy intersection. People, they're driving very fast their cars, especially the young people, and considering the fact that more buildings are built on that neighborhood, on Sheppard and Pharmacy actually, a huge condominium goes up. So these people are using Wishing Well to get to 401. So the traffic is getting worse on that street. The request we have today to this council to make sure that we have either stop sign on that intersection or speed bump or something just preventing accidents. My house particularly, it sits on the crescent, Wishing Well and Farmcrest, and our property is on high hill. To get in and to get out, it's very dangerous for myself and for our family members. I appreciate this opportunity and thank you very much for giving us time to listen this important matter.
Any questions of the deputant? Father, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How long have you been living there?
2 years.
What's the speed like on Wishenville? Cars and how fast do they go?
I think it's possible to be maybe 50, but you know, they are speeding quite fast, especially like evening time. Young people I can see, they're really speeding on that street.
Are people using Wishenville as a cut through to Warden?
Exactly, that's what's happening because Sheppard and Warden are very busy, so they're using Wishing Well to shortcut to 401. So it becomes a major traffic area.
Thank you, Father. Any further questions of the deputant? No. Father, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Calamares, I believe you're next. You got 5 minutes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Theo Calamares. I spoke with Mr. Karagianis last week, and he asked me to come out and talk about the intersection at Farmcrest and Wishingwell, specifically because I have a unique perspective there. My parents moved into 144 Wishingwell in 1974, so it's 45 years. And I grew up there. I went to school at the local public school, Vradenburg. I went to high school at Sir John A. Macdonald down the street. Certainly the neighborhood has changed over the last 45 years, as most parts of the city have, with respects to traffic. When Jim asked me last week to come out and say a few words on the proposed stop sign, a three-way stop versus the current one stop sign that's there now on Farmcrest, I agreed to it. And last Thursday, I stood outside of my parents' house at 144 Wishingwell Drive for 5 minutes, from 5:20 to approximately 5:25. And just a simple survey that I conducted there were approximately 60 cars that passed through that intersection going southbound on Wishingwell. There were approximately 40 cars that crossed that intersection going northbound on Wishingwell, and approximately another 25 to 30 cars that came westbound up Farmcrest towards Wishingwell. So that simple math equates to about 100 cars, let's just say. And if we extrapolate that over an hour, that's about 1,000 vehicles that are crossing that little intersection in a residential neighborhood through rush hour. When I grew up there back in the 70s and 80s, kids were playing on the street, hide and seek, tag, and kids on bicycles all the time. I recently have had the unique experience of moving back into my parents' home with my wife and 3 young children as we are building our house a few blocks away. And we moved back there in April of this year. And for the first few months, I didn't realize that within, a 50-meter span of my parents' house, there were families with young children. The reason I didn't know that is because they don't let their kids out on the front lawns and on the front sidewalks due to the heavy traffic that goes through Wishingwell. In addition to that, the average speed, I'm guesstimating here, but certainly the one stop sign that is there on Farmcrest is most people just roll through it because it's not a full 3-way stop. So they don't generally stop fully before looking both ways and proceeding. I would say that the average speed of the cars going north and southbound on Wishingwell has to be in the vicinity between 55 to 65 kilometers an hour. They are cutting through, going northbound on Warden, coming down through Vradenburg and back northbound on Wishingwell so they can avoid a very busy left-hand turn at Warden and Sheppard. Pharmacy does not go over the 401, so any cars going northbound on Pharmacy have to cut through the neighborhood to either go back onto Vig Park or to Warden to continue heading southbound. And both of those intersections are very busy when it comes to left-hand turn signals. I think it should be, there's been a lot of change in the neighborhood. There's a lot of speeding and traffic concerns. There's a condominium being built right now at the corner of Sheppard and Pharmacy, which will just add to that problem. And there's a new one, as I understand, that's being proposed right now across the street, another large tower, which will increase the population of the community. Thank you.
Any questions of the deputant? One question. How far from the corner is your parents' house where you grew up and you are now residing? Are you 3 houses, 4 houses, 5 houses, 2 houses, 1 house? How far are you from the corner?
They are the first house just south of that intersection, the first driveway. So not necessarily considered the corner house because the corner house is situated on Farmcrest, but right beside that is my parents' house.
When do you back into your driveway or do you drive in and back out?
That's a challenge, actually, on a daily basis. And my parents are getting older, so backing into the driveway is the easier of the 2 options, although that has its own challenges. The reason is because it's easier for them to come out of the driveway when they need to leave the property. It's almost impossible, or very dangerous, I shouldn't say impossible, very dangerous to reverse out of that driveway with the amount of traffic that's coming up and down Wishingwell. Now, it doesn't make it any easier that they have to reverse into the driveway because that's a challenge in and of itself. That part of Wishingwell has a bit of a bow to it. So depending on exactly where you are, you could be 10 meters to the left or 10 meters to the right. You cannot clearly see the traffic that's coming either northbound or southbound on that bow area of Wishing Well.
You stated that when you were younger, you were out playing on Wishing Well.
That's right.
You got 3 kids of your own now.
I do.
Are you allowing them to go
Listen,
out
we
and
put up, we put up a couple of those signs, please slow down, big yellow signs that, the city, the schools, the local schools give them out. I actually think that tempts some people to go faster and just disobey authority. I won't leave my kids outside on the sidewalk to play unless they have adult supervision. And certainly, it's difficult for any parent to constantly be outside with their children while they're playing with other children in the neighborhood. So it's a very rare circumstances, but if we did have a party or get together at the house and the kids wanted to go outside and maybe walk up and down the sidewalk or skateboard or something like that, it would be under direct parental supervision that we would allow that.
Thank you, Mr. Calamares. Any further questions of the deputants? Okay, questions of staff? Speakers? I do have, I will speak, and this is to authorize all-way compulsory stop control at the intersection of Wishing Well and Farmcrest. We heard from the deputants that this is an intersection that has great concern. Both Father Zarkarian and Mr. Calamares, they live within meters of the intersection. I think Father Zarkarian, he backs onto the intersection. This is an intersection where there's a lot of traffic that goes through. There's traffic that uses Wishing Well to cut down and then use Vandenberg in order to get into the 401. Audi, there is a Volkswagen Audi dealership just down the street on Sheppard, just east of Warden, and they use this intersection in order to test drive their cars. There's a lot of cars that are going through the neighborhood, and I would ask of you please to support this motion. Questions? No. All those in favor? Carried. On the item? Favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 11.12. Left turn prohibition, 2621 Midland Avenue, and I realize that we do have the principal, Mira Namwang of Agincourt Collegiate Institute. If you'd like to come down, please. Ma'am, whenever you're ready, you got 5 minutes.
Okay, good morning. My name is Miranam Wong, and I have the pleasure of serving as the principal of Agincourt Collegiate. This request is made on behalf of myself and all the staff, trying to look at ways of keeping our schools safe going into and out of our school driveway. So if I could just get your attention to the center. So you could see at the bottom of that picture, it says Midland Avenue. So the school is situated on 2621 Midland Avenue. And you see a bunch of arrows sort of in the middle, the bottom. The congestion there is overwhelming, and we are at a point where it's a safety concern. There's a sidewalk, there's a bus stop, there is a circular driveway on the south end of Midland. It's only one way, so school buses and parents are dropping their kids off at the front of the school. They can only go one way, so then they exit to their left, trying to get out of the driveway onto Midland. Some of those cars want to go south, which is making a left turn, and some cars want to make a right. At the same time, we have parents driving south on Midland, wanting to drop their kids off in the back parking lot, trying to get in not through the driveway, but making a left where the very cars are trying to come out. That is a 2-lane driveway. It is supposed to be an in and out. Unfortunately, because cars are exiting from 2 different driveways, one from the circular and one from the north end of the parking lot, they are sort of taking up both those driveways. And then they're trying to make a left, and cars are trying to pull in. And so it causes great traffic congestion at certain times of the day. My request is to prohibit cars from exiting our school and making that left turn, and only allowing cars exiting our school to make a right turn at certain times of the day, which includes the drop-off time from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning, and pickup time from 2:30 till 4:30 in the afternoon. In addition, I'm usually not there on Saturdays, but my understanding is that we have a community permit where every hour there are about 800 students that flow in and out every Saturday through like a community permit. And they're asking for that same prohibition to be there all day Saturday, so that cars can only turn right coming out of our school driveway. So that is my request.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputant? I have one question, if I may. Is there a Sunday service, like churches or other groups that use your school on Sunday?
No, our school is not permitted on Sunday. It's only just case by case, but not on a regular basis.
So the recommendation was that Saturdays, like all during the week and Saturdays.
Yes.
Would you have a problem if we were to include Sundays in there? I mean, you know, like just to keep consistency, if I may.
Oh, no, I would not. The school is generally empty on Sundays.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Questions of staff? Councillor Lai.
Just a quick question for staff. If there's no left turn from school out this way, and then if they're making right turn, if I really wanted to go to south, to Sheppard, what other alternatives can I use? Do I have to make a U-turn? It would be making it very dangerous as well, too, you know?
Right. You know, a lot of our staff who do see that congestion, they just drive up about 200 meters.
Sorry, hold on.
Oh,
hold
I'm
on.
so sorry.
This was questions of staff.
Sorry, I'm staff, so.
Sorry, okay, I appreciate that. No, but sorry.
City staff.
City staff, I thank you, although you're city staff in another capacity, we thank you, and thank you for coming down today. Please just, thank you very much, appreciate it. Councillor Lai.
Through the chair, thank you. We certainly wouldn't recommend anyone to make a U-turn, anywhere on Midland Avenue for the obvious safety concerns. They would have to find an alternate route. Typically, when we look at these, we don't search for a preferred alternate. It depends on which destination people leaving the school are going to.
Is Lockheed on close by? Like, is it? I just wanted to take a reference.
That is correct. It's actually just opposite the school, just to the.
So they probably can turn left on Lockheed and go out that way, could they? Because I'm trying to make sure that it's really safe if we're going to make this rule.
Through the chair, they can't turn left. They won't be able to turn left exiting the driveway, so they won't be able to make their way to Lockheed. They will have to travel north on Midland Avenue.
Oh, so just have to keep north and maybe turn somewhere.
Yeah, find an alternate route that works for them.
And another question is that is it very close to Lockheed where their pedestrian accident happened recently?
Through the chair, yes, there was an injury earlier in the summer. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions of staff? Noticing none. Speakers. Councillor Lai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the principal actually to bring this forward because, for student and pedestrian safety is very, very important and it's paramount that we keep the school area safe for the students and for everybody. So I think this is very good coming forward because we need to help pedestrian safety. So basically, I would just like to move staff recommendation if there's no further speaker.
Okay. Questions of the mover? Seeing none, any further speakers? All those in favor of motion? Opposed, carried. All those, all right, thank you. Next one is, let's see, 11:15. Traffic control signals, Scarborough Golf Club Road and at Confederation Drive. We have 3 speakers, Wayne Grattan, Alfred Remessiar, and Farhan Tapas. If you're here, please make your way to the front, starting with Wayne Grattan. Wayne, you have 5 minutes. Please start whenever you want.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you all having a good morning. My name is Farhan Tapas.
Okay, you're all working together? Fine, appreciate it. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
I'm here for a traffic light on Scarborough Golf Club Road and Confederation Drive. I've been living in this neighborhood from last 10 years. I have seen such a tragedy, like a car crash, speeding, and death. The reason why I need some sort of traffic light or pedestrian light on this intersection, because we have public library, public schools, and the religious place like a mosque in this neighborhood. Local, most of the time, use this crossing on their daily basis, and it's so unsafe for them to cross this intersection. And to get control on this, I have reached out to the city. I have made a couple calls in the last 6 years. There is no action from there. I have reached out to Toronto police. All they do, they come out, they write a bunch of tickets, but it's not helping us, just helping them to get a bonus. And if I do the survey, the Scarborough Golf Club Road starts from the Ellesmere on the north of Scarborough Golf Club Road, and it's on the south of Kingston Road. Almost all the 4-way has some sort of traffic light or pedestrian light. And some of them there are still 3 ways. However, the Scarborough Golf Club Road and Confederation Drive, it's the 4-way. So this is my humble request to city and the transportation department to get us something that can control traffic and should be safe for local to cross this intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the deputant? No? Councillor Ainsley.
Yep. Thank you. So you've lived in the community for how long? 10 years?
Yes, I am.
And at Scarborough Golf Club and Confederation, do you see a lot of people jaywalking to try and get across Confederation?
Yes, sir. Like I mentioned, in this neighborhood, we have a public school, public library, and a religious place like a mosque. People often use this crossing on their daily basis, and especially summertime, the kids, they use the crossing. The seniors, they walk out. People are walk out with jogging or come out, walk for a dog, kind of thing. So yeah, this intersection being used a lot.
Okay, and you also see a lot of speeding in the community.
Yes, I do.
Unfortunately, in September, there was a young man that was hit and killed at this intersection.
Yes, that was so unfortunate, but at the same time was so sad. And also there was a recent incident happened, this was last week. I also have forwarded the video, what happened there. There's a driver, he couldn't control his car, ruined a tree, and dragged his car to the sidewalk. But luckily, there was no pedestrian on the sidewalk, but could be dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Any further questions of the deputant? All right, thank you. We do have two other speakers, Wayne Grattan and Alfred Semiar. Mr. Grattan, is that you, sir?
We're ready.
You want to speak
Yes.
from there?
Yes, please.
That's fine, by all means, sir. Go ahead, sir. You got 5 minutes.
Okay. Basically, we're talking about the stoplights, Confederation, Scarborough Golf Club Road. 5 things that make an unsafe intersection. One is terrain. The other one is that we have 1950-60 neighborhood designs for traffic. There's been limited review of all the traffic calming within our area of Cedar Ridge and Cornell. Pedestrian and driver education, lack of tools to slow drivers down, and finally, fatalities and accidents statistics. So I'm going to take you down memory lane. Actually, before I take you to memory lane, along the stretch, which is about a half a kilometer, we have 2 curves and 3 hills, which makes sight lines very poor on this stretch of road. Back in 1957, as you can see, mostly farmland all the way around. Nothing's been developed at all. In 1959, they built a school, and it did complete in 59-60, Cornell. Scarborough Golf Club was still a dirt road, and you could see the neighborhood that was going in at the time. One thing, though, is on a major, I'm not going to call it a major road, but a 4-lane road, in the modern designs, backyards actually face on to major roads. And the reason for that is that you can control the traffic within the neighborhood, and they'll come out at only the intersection, and same with foot traffic or pedestrians. Back in the 50s and 60s, that was not the case. They actually put driveways facing out onto the main streets or major roads. Then in 1960, you can see where the school is completed, and there's now development starting, or there's still no development east of Scarborough Golf Club Road. 1962, the school is completed, the neighborhoods are growing, and you're starting to see development on the east side of Scarborough Golf Club Road. And at the same time, 1964, that's when they put the crosswalk in at Marcella. The need for that crosswalk in 1964 was because the east side of Scarborough Golf Club was starting to get populated, and they needed to get the kids over to Cornell Public School safely. Then we roll into 1965. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see another school being built, Willow Park, and that was to accommodate the kids on the east side of Scarborough Golf Club, where Cornell accommodates the kids on the west side. So at that point in time, the crosswalk that was put in place had, I'm going to say, a reduced need due to the fact the kids weren't crossing the road like they used to. Then we get into 1969. Now the neighborhood's pretty well fully developed. Then we roll into 2015. And that's when they changed the crosswalk at Marcella and Scarborough Golf Club to stoplights. And when that happened, there was no, I'm going to say, community consultation on it. I don't know the reason behind it, why the lights changed, whether it was a program that was put in place to replace crosswalks with lights. But if we had the chance, we would have liked to left the crosswalk at that point at Marcella and moved the set of lights down to Confederation and Scarborough Golf Club. What we find today is the neighborhood now has a high Muslim population, and the kids have to cross Scarborough Golf Club to get to the mosque. And that's where I'm going to say Confederation and Scarborough Golf Club, you'll see the kids standing at the corner, and they'll literally run across to get to the other side of the street because they just can't judge the traffic on Scarborough Golf Club. The other one part of this is Cedar Brae Mall is on the route if you live on the east side of Scarborough Golf Club, and Cedar Brae Library. Seniors use that intersection to cross.
Please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
almost done. Driver education and pedestrian education, we leave that up to the municipality and the province to do. And the other thing that we lack in our neighborhood is, I'm going to say, tools to slow drivers down. And I'm hoping this is the first stage of putting those lights in that will help us put in other tools in our neighborhood to slow drivers down for safety. We've had in the last 2 years, 3 fatalities on that stretch of road, 2 pedestrians, one car. And at the intersection itself of Scarborough Golf Club and Confederation, we get an average of 1 accident a year. So we hate to lose another life along that stretch. It just doesn't make sense. And then finally, hopefully you vote yes, and it falls under zero tolerance for the future.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the deputant? Councillor Ainsley?
So Mr. Groton, how long have you lived in the neighborhood?
We've been in that neighborhood, 33 years, between living at Scarborough Golf Club in Lawrence, north of it, behind the plaza, and then 20 years on Karen Ann at Confederation and Scarborough Golf Club.
Okay, so you would consider yourself a pretty good, you've been in that neighborhood that long, you've seen the changes as you outlined in your presentation, consider yourself a pretty knowledgeable about traffic and pedestrian use.
I would. I actually grew up in the Gilwood neighborhood and used to use that road to get up to Cedar Brae Mall, Cedar Brae Library, and I've actually had the pleasure to receive a speeding ticket along Scarborough Golf Club due to the fact it was a radar trap. And the reason for the radar trap is the, I'm going to say the hills, the small hills that are on Scarborough Golf Club.
Okay, and you'd agree with the previous deputant about a lot of people jaywalking at this intersection?
Yeah, I'm not, as I say, on that part, I see people crossing quite often. I'm not too sure about the term jaywalking, and the reason why I'm not too sure about that term is due to the fact it is an intersection and people do cross at that intersection. Whether they're in violation of a pedestrian law, I don't know.
Okay, and I know you just said you got 1 speeding ticket on Scarborough Golf Club. Otherwise, do you see a lot of police enforcement on Scarborough Golf Club for speeding?
Not like my younger days. In my younger days, it was a radar trap, so we knew. And actually, it was I would say in my younger days, I would see a radar policeman there maybe once a month. In my older days, I think he comes up maybe twice a year, once a year. And it was interesting because after the young fellow was, the fatality that took place 2 months ago, the next morning a police officer did show up and take radar. And Cam Woolley was there also with his radar gun. And he had no problems pulling in 5, I think it was 3 violators or 4 violators within a 20-minute span to give them tickets, and that was a day after a fatality.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gretton. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions of the deputant? Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We do have one more speaker, if I'm not mistaken. It's Alfred Remisiar. Alfred, will you please? You got 5 minutes. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, councillors, city staffs, and everybody who's here. I'd like to start my speech with a letter to the council meeting. I'm writing this letter to you with great painful heart and tears. My name is Sweetie Kumar, and I am the mother of Samuel Dan Kumar, the 17-year-old boy who was struck and killed by a speeding car while crossing the road due to an uncontrolled intersection at Scarborough Golf Clough Road and Confederation Drive, right outside my home on September 23rd, 2019. This road is dangerous to our community as it is a main road and there is no pedestrian crosswalk at Confederation Drive and Scarborough Golf Club Road. And the nearest intersection is an intersection over. Every day, children and neighbors run across the intersection to get to the nearby school or cross to the other neighborhood. Like many others, my son was simply trying to cross this intersection. He waited for a driver to stop before running across when another car coming in the opposite direction hit him at nearly 80 to 90 kilometers an hour. I heard it all happened, and I ran out to my son on the road. It is a memory I will never forget, and I pray it is something that no other parent, friend, or neighbors has to experience. Since 2014, community members have been trying to get a crosswalk at the intersection, but the city has been ignoring our request for years. The city is not going to ignore us any longer, and I hope the death of my son was not for nothing, and it will at least serve some justice in my community. All we ask for this is a safe pedestrian crosswalk. This is my humble and grief-stricken request for my community. I'm not able to come and see you today, but my daughter and my friends are here for the support and make sure our plea is heard. This is the letter which was sent from the mother to myself to address to the council meeting today. My first question or my speech is, the request was sent on 2014 with the concern of a pedestrian crosswalk because of the fact that there's a school, there's a lot of older people cross the street, and it is a main street. And the request was denied. In 2019, July, the second request was sent in by the community to install and look into it, to install a pedestrian crosswalk. The request was denied. Third request was sent in, I believe, the month the boy was struck and killed. By looking at all this, I'm not sure how the City of Transportation look at the roads and say it is safe, not enough to install pedestrian crosswalk when the community is screaming their voice out to say, hey, we are in a danger zone. We need something to be installed for our children to be safe, crossing to get to school, get to library, get to wherever they need. Because why they don't have the privilege to cross a road when the car commuters have the access to ride onto these roads at a high speed? Why it's not equally looked at when we are putting up roads to make sure that the pedestrians have all the rights as a commuter on a vehicle? I'm not sure how this study is done to qualify a road to be safe or not to be safe, or not to have anything installed when the community is asking for it. There's a reason why the community asks. They're not asking for something because they just want it. They're asking because they're concerned of their children. They're asking because they know there's a danger coming to somebody in that community and they want to stop that. It doesn't need to cause a death for somebody to wake up and say, okay, you know what? Let's move on and have a pedestrian. It shouldn't cost the 17-year-old boy's life to pass a motion to have a crosswalk. That boy had dreams. That boy had ambitions. He was a knowledgeable student. He was an amazing boy. He didn't know that was his last day. He told his parents to have a dinner ready, and he went across. He never came back. The mom heard him cry and die on that spot. You can all imagine how the scene would have been if you are a parent. You know, you hearing your son being crushed on the road. This was the scene that happened. The next day I went to see the parents. I was at the road. There was a cop. There was 2 news reporters with cameras videotaping. Within 20 minutes, they pulled over 3 people for overspeeding. And I'm like, wow, this is insane. 20 minutes, 3 people were stopped right after the day the boy was killed. And everybody was shocked. The cop was saying, we can't do anything. We can't be here all day pulling up cars. And
I would ask you to wrap up.
yes, thank you. And the newspaper reporter was there every week reporting this case, reporting this incident, saying, okay, there's something needs to be done. There's, like somebody mentioned earlier, there's a hill. The people can't see the cars coming in. And that's why they were urging somebody to have a crosswalk there. And then my request today is to have a crosswalk. We're not asking for a traffic light to stop the traffic moving. We want to have a crosswalk there so that when people are there, they can press the button, the lights are on, so that they can cross safely. That's all we're asking for today. And I hope everybody can feel the pain and feel the community's request, and we can move this motion forward. Thank you for the time.
Questions of the deputant? I'm going to ask a couple of questions, if I may. Wouldn't it be safer to have a traffic light versus a crosswalk?
Yes, it would be much safer. And, you know, when they request for a crosswalk, the city denied it. I'm not sure how much further they're going to go for a traffic light. Yes, definitely a traffic light would be.
So if we were to move a motion for a traffic light, would that be something that would be better for the community?
Yes, definitely it will be.
Okay, thank you. Questions of staff? Speakers? Councillor Ainsdale?
Thank you, Councillor Chair Karagianis. I am going to move a motion that's in the report and asking for the installation of traffic control signals at this intersection. I've been the city councillor in this area for 14 years now, spent most of my life in this area. I've asked for 3 traffic studies at this intersection. When I have monthly town hall meetings, probably the biggest request or concern that I get in this area is around speeding on Scarborough Golf Club Road. And as the one deputy, Mr. Grattan, pointed out, when you come down Scarborough Golf Club Road from Lawrence, you're going down a hill. At Marcella, we've had an crosswalk there going back 30 years. I think my understanding, my recollection from transportation staff is they're worried about pedestrians crossing at Marcella, that the frequency of speeding on Scarborough Golf Club was becoming higher and higher. I wasn't getting the police enforcement. They put stoplights there because the crosswalk was becoming too dangerous. If you go further down Scarborough Golf Club Road at Confederation and Scarborough Golf Club, I've had 3 studies now that I've asked for something to be put in that intersection. Actually had one outstanding that I put in this last July because, once again, repeatedly people asking for something to be done at this intersection. September 2019, I had a 17-year-old Samuel Dan Kumar, or Sammy, as most of the community knew him, walked out of his house at 8:30 in the evening, walked across this intersection, and got hit by a vehicle. The other dynamic at this intersection is that people driving north on Scarborough Golf Club, there's a ravine just south of here. It's 1 lane each way. When you're driving north on Scarborough Golf Club, when you come out of that 1-lane ravine system, it comes up, Scarborough Golf Club opens up to 2 lanes. It's almost like a floodgate opening, and the speeding, people just race up Scarborough Golf Club. The number of times I've asked for speed enforcement from 43 Division and Toronto Traffic Services, we actually have 1 dedicated officer at 43 Division. That's all he does is speed enforcement. They supplement it with other officers, but big bone of contention for me, especially as we're going forward on our budget, is the amount of traffic enforcement that gets done in 43 Division. It was actually really embarrassing for me and sad the very next day after this young man was killed, and I had reporters saying, you know, come on out to Scarborough Golf Club and Confederation. We want to interview you. You know, this man was killed last night. We want to get your perspective. I, as a city councillor, and we all love the media, the last thing on that morning that I wanted to do was go to Scarborough Golf Club and Confederation to do media interviews after 3 different traffic requests trying to get something done at this intersection. It was heartbreaking. Heartbreaking that 3 hours later, I had to watch 43 Division send an officer there to do speed enforcement and catching drivers. at the same time, and only there because a young man was killed the night before. We really need to do something about our traffic enforcement as well with Toronto Police Services. I ask all of my colleagues to support the recommendation here for the safety of my community. I want to thank the residents for all coming out, all longtime residents that continue to see the issues at this intersection. Thank you.
Any questions of Councillor Ainsley? Recommendation. Councillor, I just got one quick question. You're asking for a traffic light there, not a crosswalk.
Traffic light.
All right, thank you. Because I hear some people saying, you know, a traffic. All right, thank you.
Traffic light.
Any further questions, Councillor Thompson? Okay, to speak, Councillor Thompson.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be supporting the staff recommendation. At 2:30 this afternoon, I'll be going to Lawrence and Townley for the installation of a traffic signal. And certainly, it's not, in this location that this group is asking for, but the motion is to ensure that there is a traffic signal at this location. I referenced that I'm going to Townley this afternoon. Over the 30 years or so that the residents had been asking for traffic signals at this intersection, at this area, the city has continued to say no. And there were approximately 3 or 4 fatalities at this location. And we have worked really hard to convince the city that there was a need for a traffic signal there. All along Lawrence Avenue, and I gather the Scarborough Golf Club Road and many other roads and streets in our city are similar in terms of the speed at which vehicles are traveling and so on. And a human body has no defenses against a vehicle that's going 80 or even 60 kilometers an hour on a stretch of roadway and so on. And so I think we have to continue to do more to protect our citizens. We have to ensure that and remind ourselves that safety is our #1 priority in terms of protecting our citizens. I know that it's challenging in the perspective of the city in that we can't put traffic signals everywhere, but we're going to have to do a better job in terms of protecting neighborhoods, protecting communities, and protecting our citizens and so on. As I go today to Townley, there are many other areas, just even in my ward, that are in need of traffic signals and so on. And I know that, you know, the requirements of warrants to be met and the requirements of provincial regulations and our transportation regulations and so on is always considered. But I think the consideration should always be the human impact and a human life. And I think it's extremely important for us to use that as our first consideration, as opposed to, you know, we say things like, well, you know, the number of people that are crossing in this particular area, it doesn't meet the warrants and so on. But all it takes is one person. This young boy has lost his life. All the things that he had hoped and his dreams and that of his family has now been diminished, and it has an impact. And it's always challenging when we come to the dance late, which is to install a traffic signal after an event of this kind that has had such a profound impact on the community and on the families. We've heard from the mom in terms of, you know, her requests, which is to ensure that her son's life will not be for naught, and that it's something that we not only remember, but we acknowledge, and then that this traffic signal at this location will obviously not bring him back, but she wants to ensure that the community is safe for all going forward. And that's the nature of mothers and mom who has lost a son in this particular case. I can't begin to, you know, to think what she has gone through or is still going through, losing the life of her young son. And so while we unveil the traffic signal today at Townley, we will continue to think and recognize that we need to do more, and this location and other locations across the city needs our attention, and we need to do a better job to protect our citizens, because drivers are not getting the message. And I want to thank the province for, the decision that was made recently. So we are going to have the ability to be able to police our roadway without having police officers, right? The automatic capturing of vehicles speeding along the roadway now took forever to come, but I think it was this week that the province confirmed that they're going to allow the city to be able to put electronic devices on our roadway to be able to monitor the roadway without police being present and to issue those tickets. And that's going to help us tremendously. Many other jurisdictions around the world have had that in for a long, long time. We've been asking for that regulation to change and the adoption of those principles that have been utilized elsewhere in the world. It will make our community safer, and yeah, drivers will feel it in the pocketbooks, but I won't feel sorry for them because it will make our citizens safer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers? Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the community members that came out to speak today about a really tragic incident. I know it wasn't easy for them to do that. And I also want to recognize Councillor Ainsdale for his continued leadership on this issue, and not just at this intersection, but also Morningside and Cumber, where in that case as well, the requests for a signalized intersection were originally designed. The warrant system wasn't working, and I've been assured that under Vision Zero, requests like this for signalized intersections should be easier to get. And so I'm really hopeful that we will see that change, and I will be watching very closely. In my neighborhood, I have 2 requests I have been asked by the media frequently to speak about. Like, this is top of mind for everybody. One of them is there's a 1.7 kilometer stretch along Lawrence that doesn't have any crossing. Similarly, I have a 1.3 kilometer stretch along Military Road without any crossings. Children are using these, and while the warrant system, based on pedestrian counts or KSIs killed or seriously injured, may not say that a signalized crossing is needed, common sense says that it's needed. And we need to be listening to the community, and we need to be using common sense in these decisions going forward. I'm very hopeful that the new Vision Zero warrant system will not be turning things back like Cumber and Morningside in that intersection where we know that children are crossing, and the original warrant system said it wasn't needed and it had to be overturned by this council. I don't like when we overturn things here because I want to believe in evidence-based decision-making. But if the current system isn't working and it's not protecting pedestrians, is not protecting our most vulnerable, then we need to have a second look at it. And so I'm glad to support Councillor Ainsdale's motion here today. I just want to point out what our next item is talking about. Our next item is looking at speed reductions across Scarborough as part of Vision Zero. But these speed reductions will do nothing if we're not enforcing them. And this intersection here that we're talking about is a prime example of that, where people are being pulled over going 80 in a 50 kilometer zone. So in our next item, we're going to be changing a whole bunch of Scarborough arterial roads to 50. But if we're not enforcing it, then it's not going to make a difference. And if we're not giving people protected crossings, then that's not going to matter either. So our next item is just a step in the right direction, but we need to do more, and hopefully through photo radar and some of the reports back on signalized crossings, we can do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? All right, I'll say a couple of words. We councillors face these requests on a daily basis, and certainly I want to say thank you to my colleague, Councillor Ainsdale, for the work that he's done. It should not have been an accident that would have been traffic lights there. That should not have been the case, but a lot of times when we look at warrants and we read the reports, it's how many fatalities or what has happened at that intersection. I do have a similar situation in my ward, and I've asked staff many times. That's at 3131 and 3151 Bridletown Circle. We do have a pedestrian that crosses. That pedestrian is probably a false security for the pedestrians. The only thing that has happened in the last year, there's been 2 accidents there, and repeatedly I've asked for stoplights. And I have to tell you, there's something that tells us that the warrant system, although that our staff is using it, is probably old. It does not meet the realities of today, and there's nothing better than somebody that comes today, or the council that she or he speaks for his constituents, but my condolences go to the family. That should not have been the case for us to put lights in. But unfortunately, that is the reality, and I will be supporting Councillor Ainsley's motion. Any further speakers? Okay. All those in favor of recorded vote, all those in favor of the motion? The ayes, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Karygiannis, Councillor Calvary, Councillor Lai, Councillor Thompson. Opposed? Carried. On the motion itself? Okay, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. All right, the last item is 11.8 that was held by Councillor Lai. Questions of staff?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Page 3 of 5 of staff report. I'd like to ask staff about the, on the second last paragraph, in order to increase effectiveness, the speed limit reduction recommended in this report would be paired with a robust public education campaign. Can staff define what this campaign is all about? What are you planning to do on this campaign?
Through the chair, I don't have all the information available on what the wholesome public education, but one of our major components of our Vision Zero program is an educational component. What we're doing at the present time right now is we have an ad campaign that's being placed, through, I think it's at bus stops, it's on some TTC buses, as well as through some digital advertising to make drivers aware of the importance of Vision Zero, and as well to notify them about these speed limit reductions that are coming forward.
So with the campaign, so you said the campaign will include some education. So are you planning to communicate these kind of communication? How are you going to go about the ethnic community? Are you going to be doing something for the ethnic community?
Through the chair, I do know through previous motions you submitted at City Council, we are looking at, in terms of our requirements for notification and for making those available in multiple languages. I don't know exactly right here today, but I can certainly gather more information on what that plan looks like for you at a later date.
Yeah, our staff have been asking for, since I made motion on council in July, we've been asking for education materials in Chinese for my ward, and we were told that there was no budget for it. So I'm just wondering, what is the timeline, for us to get those kind of education material?
Through the chair, I would have to go back to our Vision Zero staff to get an update on that.
Is not the Vision Zero staff is not here today?
My apologies, there's no one from actual Division Zero team present, but I can certainly take that back and follow up with you at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further questions of staff? Councillor Ainsley. Sorry, Councillor McGill, I apologize. Sorry about that.
I'll cry about that later.
Okay. Woodshed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is great that you want to decrease these speeds, but what are the plans for increased enforcement? Because if we're not enforcing them at 60, what's the difference by bringing it to 50 if they're still going to go 80 in either case?
So through the chair, as part of our, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe as part of our 2020 budget process, we are looking to allot a certain amount of funding for police services to enhance their traffic enforcement initiatives. So that would be money transportation spending with Toronto Police to enhance those enforcement measures.
And where you have, because you've already started to roll out these speed reductions, have they been working, and what is the evidence that they're working?
Through the chair, so the speed reductions recommended in our original Vision Zero report at July Council, those were on major arterial roads, which are designated council authority. Those have all been rolled out just, I believe, at the beginning of December, so just actually would have just been finished. So right now there hasn't been any time to do any data collection, but that is certainly the goal of the Vision Zero team, is to take a data-driven approach and look at the effectiveness of these measures.
And will you be reporting back to us on whether it was effective?
Through the chair, I'm not sure if there is a report coming forward, but certainly that's something I could follow up with the team and find out for you after.
Your methodology for deciding where these reductions were happening. So you outline on page 3 of 5 of your report. So, basically, it looks like the decision was everywhere, we'll get it, and then it was exclusionary on where you weren't dropping. Is that the case? As opposed to proactively saying, these are risky, these are the ones who are most problematic? Did you just take the lens of everything first?
Through the chair, so there were a couple of areas that were excluded based on the physical characteristics and some of those conditions outlined in the report. But generally, the Vision Zero report we saw earlier at council outlined our holistic speed management approach, which is addressing speeds on all road classes, starting from major arterials right down to local roads over a long-term period. So there are a few exceptions in there based on some of the criteria and road classes, but I don't think there's very many.
So I have in my community some wards that are basically like country roads, so they don't even have sidewalks. So how would you deal with those ones through this process?
Through the chair, I'm not sure on the specific criteria used for those roads. I'm going to defer to traffic operators. They can comment.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. Our consideration really was looking at the adjacent land uses. So with your example of a country road, we would not be considering speed limit reductions on those, as there really is not anticipated to be pedestrian conflicts. We don't expect to see very many pedestrians out there. So those were not the focus of this report. We're really looking to make those reductions in the locations that we believe they're most likely to be successful. Putting an artificially low speed limit on a country road where we won't see enforcement, we don't think is going to achieve much benefit.
I agree, but what I see for mine, and maybe I'm incorrect then, Bear Road and Pickering Town Line both seem, I don't think they have sidewalks. I think they're country roads, but maybe we can just look at those ones later. I mean, I'm fine with them being reduced. It's just, if there's no sidewalks, are we planning to put sidewalks in? Are we actually trying to drive pedestrians there? Like, what is the goal that we're trying to achieve? Because it's very different in my communities where I have homes versus, these country areas where there's no people. And I just want to make sure if we're applying speed reductions there, that they're with an actual purpose. And if that purpose is to drive pedestrians, that's fine, but then do we need to be looking at bringing in roads? Like, is that the goal? So I just want to be clear on the goal on some of these country roads that are in the north part of the community, in particular in Rouge Park.
So yeah, to your original statement was correct that this approach was broad brush, looking at essentially all roads, and then looking at those and saying, are there ones that we should not be reducing because we don't expect good compliance? And that's the approach we took. Certainly there's room for further review, and if you've got specific locations that you'd like us to look at, we're happy to take that back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. The province recently approved electronic speed control is what they've done? Is that what they've done?
Yeah, so through the chair, the province has approved automated speed enforcement is what we're calling it. So we've been working in conjunction with the province on that over the course of this year.
So how will that work, and how will that help us with respect to road safety?
Through the chair, so at the present time, what we're looking at is deploying automated speed enforcement in areas already designated as community safety zones. So those are areas right now where we've school zones. So largely we've designated school zones as community safety zones. So we'll be deploying those in those zones. They will be moved around periodically like some of the others. To assist with enforcement, in your question is it's actually just really a deterrent in terms of the fines.
Right. There are places in the world where you have mechanism and a system in place where I've seen you've got this overhead structure that has features that are able to capture speed and capture a license plate and issue tickets. Is that system being contemplated or considered here?
Through the chair, not that I'm aware of at this time, but I could certainly speak with our team and some of our senior members there.
But
to
are
find
you
out.
aware of such systems being utilized around elsewhere in the world?
I'm not personally aware, through the chair, I'm not personally aware, but I do, it's similar to the 407. I mean, that would be, a typical, where they're taking camera footage and using it. So I do believe the technology exists.
So, do you think that's something that we should be considering? I realize what you said, you're not fully aware, but do you think that's something we should be considering as a major deterrent? Because obviously we will never have enough police officers to enforce the traffic safety rules, but if we were to have this electronic system and mechanism, that would actually help us, because obviously people would get tickets and would be fined if they were speeding. Do you think this is something that could potentially have an impact to assist us?
So through the chair, so the automated speed enforcement program, is an electronic program. It may not be with, the overhead cameras. Those are more permanent installations.
Yes.
But the automated speed enforcement does give us the deterrent aspect and an electronic and automated system for issuing those tickets. They're easier to be deployed, I would suspect, than a larger, more permanent system, and give us more flexibility in the areas we can.
But I just want to just stay on that for a moment. So you're talking about being able to move the systems around the city. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is.
But when you move it from one location to another, does it solve the problem that you're dealing with in the location that the equipment was in the first place? Do people actually slow down? Is that the stats or the history?
So through the chair, again, with our Vision Zero approach, we are taking a data-driven approach for all the different measures we're doing. So as we implement new measures and new toolboxes and new items in our toolbox, we are evaluating those to see how they work. This is just the first, rollout of this program in the City of Toronto. As, time goes on and as we move forward, we'll be more formalizing where those requirements.
So the issue for me is that we are trying a lot of things and we're not really settling on anything that is really, well, you may say we are and others may, but I'm still of a view that we are not doing sufficient work in terms of implementing sort of a more permanency of systems. I guess what I'd like to ask is, are you evaluating and looking at examples from other places around the world where we have permanent fixed systems in place that are helpful? Because I'm concerned that just moving, the equipment from one location to the other and keeping stats and what have you isn't necessarily making us safer overall. It may make some areas, safe for a moment, but does it really long-term sustainable safety? Does it really, have that impact?
Through the chair, I'm going to let traffic operations answer this question.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. My understanding is that the city will be looking at both permanent and mobile systems.
Okay.
I would relate this back to our original deployments of red light cameras, where it was really invisible to our residents what locations were live and which were not, right? So we had an original deployment of 40 locations. We only had 10 cameras live at any one time, right? So those cameras were moved around, but the signs remained up in place. And a user going through the intersection had no idea whether there was a camera actually in place or not. The housing was there, the signs were there, they all looked identical. We just only had limited resources to deploy the cameras. I feel this deployment will be very similar. The locations where enforcement is happening will be invisible to the users. It will look like it is being enforced everywhere, but only certain sections will be live.
Thank you. Any further questions? I got a couple of questions, if I may. Victoria Park, that's between North York, East York, and Scarborough. The speed limit on that street is still 60. Is there some plans that this will come down? I mean, I don't think we catched it when we were talking about Vision 2.0. Are we going to be able to do something there?
Through the chair, so Victoria Park is a major arterial road, and that would has council authority. I don't have it right in front of me, but I could certainly look into it and follow up with you after.
If a car is going along at 50 kilometers per hour and it hits a pedestrian, and I don't want to describe it as a good hit, and that would be a bad description. But if if somebody gets hit, what are the chances? I mean, I know there's stats in the States. What are the chances of them surviving at 50 kilometers per hour?
Through the chair, it's very hard to say what the chances are. A lot of factors, play into those conditions, including the physical conditions of the person.
Let me rephrase the question, if I may. The lower the speed, the higher the success rate of the person that's been hit to survive and to be able to walk away, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
How many of our streets do we have at 30 kilometers in the old city of Toronto? Are they most of them at that speed limit? I mean, every time I go down to the former city of Toronto, downtown, I see a lot of side streets being at 30. Would I be correct in that?
Through the chair, yes, I do believe that is correct. Most streets are 30.
Would something along those lines, at the request of the local councillor, as the downtown, be something that you'd be willing to entertain?
So through the chair, part of our Vision Zero strategy, we've taken a holistic look at speed management practices, and we've identified that, the most serious collisions happen on roads with the highest speeds. So our major arterial roads where the highest speeds are, and actually account for most of our killed or seriously injured. Based on that information and that data-driven approach, we've designed the speed management strategy to go through the roads and implement based on the road classification. First major arterials, minor arterials, collectors, and then locals.
Purcell Square, is that a major arterial?
Through the chair, I would suspect that's a local road.
And was there a fatal accident on Purcell about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago?
Through the chair, I am not personally aware of one.
Can you get the assistance of one of your staff maybe to verify that? Purcell and Oakwell Manor, speed humps, Kennedy Road Public School, Young Duncan. Come on, guys, you were there, right? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, Sean, were you trying to answer the question?
Just to provide a little more.
There we go.
It's trying to focus it. So just, further to Zach's point, you can see here that when we look at where fatal collisions are occurring, it is with greatest frequency on our arterial roadways. You can look at the gray bar graph represents the volume, or the kilometers of arterial road, and you can see how much more representative those collisions are on the major arterials than on local roads, where we've got thousands, 33,000 kilometers of local roads, which represent a very, very small percentage of the fatalities, versus approximately 1,200 kilometers of arterial, where the vast majority of the collisions occur. Thank you.
Councillor Lai, you held the item.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to begin by first thanking staff, especially the traffic staff, for the report, and especially for coming out to my town hall meetings regarding Vision Zero, and trying to educate my constituents who were present at that meeting. And being new to this file as a new councillor, I really wanted to educate myself as well, and I think I'm sold on that. But obviously, a lot of my constituents, still there's a lot of education to be done to them, especially some of the drivers. You guys were at the meeting, and majority of them do not get it, and they don't want any speed reduction. And the reason why they didn't want it is not because they didn't think it was a good idea. It's because they think that it's just a symbolic gesture if no enforcement is going to be taking place to enforce this speed limit. And also, some of the fatal accidents in my ward, they were not about speed limit, and that's why I got to listen to my constituents, and I try to make a motion on council just to reduce one street, to delay the the Vision Zero plan, but got shot down, as you know. It's not because I don't believe in it. I do believe in if we reduce the speed, the fatality will be lessened, and then the damage will be less. That's for sure. But it's just that I have to educate my constituents by doing that, because I represent them as their voice on council, and that's why I can't stress the importance of having the education materials ready in different languages. In my ward, is 45% of my residents, English is not their mother tongue. And I really think that I don't want it to happen like the previous agenda item, that we have people killed before we actually action and educate. And then it took 4 years for that traffic light to be on. And I really think that I was told that there was no budget this year to do the Vision Zero education piece in different languages. I even wanted to, get some of those Vision Zeros signed. Oh, I have 6 minutes already? No, that was not right. The clock wasn't right. I'm sorry. I didn't think I spoke for 5 minutes. But anyways, I will wrap up, okay? And I just wanted to stress the importance of getting those budget for the education piece, and especially the slow down signs, some of the signs there. Because for drivers, most of them are drivers. Some of the drivers still don't get it. And as Alberto said, that is everybody's responsibility, not the drivers, the pedestrians, and everybody has a right and responsibility. And I think we should start from educating some of our constituents to make sure that our roads are safe. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Ainsley? Okay, Councillor McKelvey, fine. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, I'm not passing any motions, but I would like staff to just have a little bit more of a look at some of the country roads that we have, because I think it's a bigger question through those areas about how we want people moving. And so while I'm not passing anything, if you could just have another look through those and let me know. And if we need to reverse anything at the next council, I'm happy to do that. I think we just want to be clear on what is our goal. And if our goal is pedestrian safety, that should be the main consideration. And I do recognize that some parts of my ward are very different than the rest of the city. So it's more like, northern Ontario on some of those roads. So, and they may have issues that we need to address from pedestrian safety, but decreasing speed alone isn't going to get there. So just if you can have a look at those roads, I would appreciate it, but I won't pass anything formally on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have two motions that I would like to move. The first one deals with reducing the speed limit on Galloway Road in my ward. The next one is much more comprehensive. It's a list of streets in my ward that I'm asking for the speed limits at various streets and categories of streets to be reduced by at least 10 kilometers. And as a bit of history, this community council in April 2018 passed a motion asking for the speed limit on all adjacent streets to schools to look at being reduced from 40 kilometers to 30 kilometers. That was in April 2018. May 2018, we expected a report back on it. It didn't come. June 2018, we deferred it until July, still waiting for a report. Report never came. And, there was some information on infrastructure and environment in 2018, but we're still waiting as a community council for something that we asked for almost 2 years ago, a report back on. I have monthly town hall meetings. One of the things that my residents always ask for if it's in a school, on the top of mind, they always say speed humps. How do we get speed humps here? I talk about the process and the petition process that we have for speed humps and how long it takes and what you have to do to get speed humps or bumps in front of the school. And then they say, you know what, councillor, it's 40 or 50 kilometers in front of the school. If that's how much work it takes to get speed bumps. Just drop the speed limit to 30 kilometers. We would much prefer that. From an enforcement perspective, when I talk to the police, if it's 40 kilometers in front of the school, we all know how it works. Most people drive 50 kilometers because they know they're not gonna, the police aren't gonna give them a ticket for going 10 over. If the speed limit's actually at 30 kilometers, even if people are doing the 40, if they're still gonna do the 50, it's a much larger ticket. Police are much happier with the 30-kilometer speed zone. If we're doing photo radar in front of the schools, I think reducing the speed limit as well down to 30 kilometers is much more reasonable. That's what the residents are asking for in my area. So I would ask everybody to support this motion. Thank you.
Any further speakers? I do have also a motion that I'd like to put up, if staff would help me out. My motion reads that to reduce the speed limit on Pharmacy Road between Sheppard Avenue and Steeles Avenue to 50 kilometers per hour. I think this is part of your encatchment that you have in one of the amendments, but I just wanted to reinforce this. There is 4 schools on Pharmacy, and although some of the people like to speed on Pharmacy, especially coming down from Markham, Eisner Road, as soon as they cross south of Steeles, those folks have to realize that there is a new, they're in a new vicinity. It's not anymore Markham where people speed. The other motion that I have is to reduce all local roads in Ward 22 to 30 kilometers per hour. I have had 2 incidents on 3131 Bridletown, 3151 Bridletown, where people were hit. I also had an incident where, not last February, the February before, young Duncan Kshu was going home. He went behind Kennedy Public School. There's a pathway. He went through that pathway as a 10-year-old, ready to go home. An older gentleman in his 70s hit the child, and the child was killed. I do have a request that I need to answer this week, and this is the Heathwood Ratepayers Association. That's their status of Heathwood as 30 kilometers per hour community, and this is something that goes between Birchmount and Kennedy, McNichol North. We do have a lot of streets that are smaller streets. I do not have north-south. I have meandering streets, and people tend to cut through the subdivisions in order to speed. I'm working with staff to make sure that we get speed humps and reduce the thing, but it's about time that we support what is happening in the older Toronto City downtown, and we do reduce our speed limits. That is something that I'm requesting for Ward 22, and I will ask my colleagues to support me. I will also be supporting the request from Councillor Ainsdale. Thank you. Questions of the motion? No. Okay, Councillor. Question of this motion?
Yes,
Okay.
Councillor. So thank you very much for the motion, but I'm just wondering, and I realize the sensitivity and the requirement to address the issue around speeding and some of the challenges that we're having, but staff has a plan to help us with respect to dealing with and adjusting speed limit right across the city. So should we all bring in today all of our wards and say we want the speed limits reduced to 30, is that the optimal approach in terms of addressing this issue?
As you were aware, Councillor Thompson, I did ask staff before if in the older city of Toronto,
I'm sorry?
I did ask, if you were listening, the staff if most of the cities in the older city of Toronto before amalgamation were down to 30, and they said yes. So the sooner that we move, I feel, especially in my ward, to reduce the speed, the more likely that we are to be going home safe.
Yes, but the question I'm asking you, Councillor Karagiannis, is whether or not you think that it's an appropriate way to respond to this issue, or whether you think that a staff program to help us all in dealing with this issue is a better option, just to say, let's just take my ward and move all the streets to 30 kilometers.
Councillor, I want to appreciate your question. However, we have 4 pages that staff have come to us at this point and say we should reduce the speed limits to this.
Right, that's part of a process.
This is part of the process. I appreciate staff's request.
No, yours is not part of the process. You're just circumventing the
Councillor, would you allow me to finish?
You can finish, you wish, yeah.
Thank you. However, staff, a couple of years ago, if we had asked them to reduce it to 40, they would have said no. With all respect to staff and the work that you're doing, I think that the local councillor knows his word, and the back alleys and everything else a little bit better. So this is the motion that I have, and if you don't want to support it, I
Councillor, I'll do as I wish. You don't have to instruct me with respect to how I should vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford, questions or to speak? To speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I want to thank the staff who have done an incredible amount of work on this. We all have supported Vision Zero 1, Vision Zero 2.0. We've sped up the process a number of times. We now have a dedicated team in Scarborough to look at Vision Zero all across Scarborough, all across the city. I fully support what they're doing, and I will continue to support what Vision Zero is doing. That is the biggest issue in my ward and all your wards, is safety on our streets. We're getting that day in and day out. And I will continue to support that. I cannot support Councillor Karygiannis's and Councillor Ainsley's motions because there's a process. I can't suggest that at some point in the future I will support going down to 30 kilometers an hour. I more than likely will, and I'm pretty confident, I'm pretty sure that Vision Zero will be bringing that to us in due time. We are working on a process. To unilaterally just go off and have all of the streets in a particular ward going down to 30 and all the other local roads being what they were before, in fact, I think will confuse the residents in Scarborough. And to a point where it may actually be more dangerous to be able to have some streets that are 30, some streets that are 40, and even with Councillor Ainsley's motion, I have no idea. He says, according to the attachments, I haven't seen the attachments. I don't know whether or not he's spoken to staff with Vision Zero, and it may be a good decision, but this is not the way to make a good decision here, folks. I'm sorry. As much as I respect what they are doing in their individual wards, I could have done the same. We had an analysis. I could have looked at all of my streets in my ward on this and done all kinds of additions, but I chose not to. I chose to not protect, but to follow the process. I think that's critically important that we do that. So as much as I would like to support going down to 30 kilometers in all of Councillor Karygiannis's ward, I can't do that at this point, and I'm hoping that we all follow this particular process, because I think if we don't do that, it's going to have a bigger impact in Scarborough and safety. Thank you.
You do 1, 2, 3. Okay. Councillor Ainsley's. Okay. You would like to speak? Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Maybe just the time. It's at 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this is a difficult situation in that we certainly all want to make our respective communities safer. We want to ensure that people aren't dying on our street and are not injured through the interaction with automobiles and so on. And yes, I'd like to take a brush and to basically say it should all be 30 and that's going to be the solution. We have established a system. We even coined a phrase of Vision Zero. It's 2.0 now, and the professional staff have come forward with an overall plan to address the issue. It is organized, it's focused, it's funded as part of a process. And for us just to simply unilaterally say, you know, I just want my specific ward to be reduced to 30, and I'm acting on behalf of a residents association or what have you, I don't think that's the approach in terms of the way we need to deal with this. I think we need to follow the process because that will, in my view, help us to be safer. I mean, as Councillor Crawford just pointed out in terms of, you know, having 30 in one area, 40 in one area, the confusion it will bring in this city, I don't think it's the best decision to be made here today. Let's follow a process. We have a system in place. Let's give that a chance in order to protect our citizens. Just because we know we can actually move forward and maybe get a few votes here doesn't necessarily protect our citizens. I think the best process is the one that the staff have laid out for us. Let's follow that. It's important.
Can I have a motion to extend, please, in order to finish? Okay, carried. Thank you. Any further speakers? All right, we got a couple of motions that we need to vote on. Clerk? Councillor Ainsley's motions. Do you want to separate them, or? You want to separate them? Nope. Okay, we're good? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? 3 and 3. What happens in this situation? Okay. Thank you. Next motion, please. Councillor Ainsley's motion, 1, 2, and 3. Do you want to separate them all as a package? As a package. All those in favor? Opposed? Dead. All right. Next. Can I separate these two, please? 1 and 2. All those in favor of 1.
Through the chair, that is already the recommendations in the report.
So why is it on there? It's not necessary to be in there. Why is it on there?
That's what is on the report. So it's already a recommendation. I don't want to use that recommendation.
Okay. All those in favor? Of number 1?
Number 1 is the report.
Okay. All right, we're adopting. Okay. Or number 2, all those in favor? Opposed? Not carried.
Sorry, can we have a vote on that, please?
Oh, sure, we can. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. All those in
Mr. Chair, just point of order. It's very confusing because I don't really know what the vote was, so I'd like to have it recorded.
All right.
Vote. Thank you.
No, and I want to thank you for that. In item number 2, reduce the speed limit on all local roads in Ward 22 to 30 kilometers. All those in favor? Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Karygiannis. All those opposed? Councillor Crawford, Councillor McElroy, Councillor Lai, Councillor Thompson. Thank you. Councillor Ainsley, you do have some?
That Scarborough Community Council pass and declares bylaws bills 1671 to 1677 and 1697 prepared for the December 3rd, 2019 meeting 11 of the Community Council.
I think we need to go back to the item. I don't think we adopted the item. Item is amended?
Recorded.
There were no amendments, right? As recommended.
As recommended? Okay.
Recorded.
Councillor Crawford, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Karygiannis, Councillor McElroy, Councillor Lai, Councillor Thompson. Carried. Ainsley?
Read it again?
Yes, please, sir.
That Scarborough Community Council pass and declares a bylaw confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated, sorry, I read that wrong one. Going back to the first one. Scarborough Community Council pass and declares bylaws bills 1671 to 1677 and 1697 prepared for the December 3rd, 2019 meeting number 11 of the Community Council.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That Scarborough Community Council pass and declares a bylaw confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting number 11 on December 3rd, 2019.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you all.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll be here for a minute. No, sorry, I'm heading this way.
It's just a we're doing so much fun. The same stuff about it. Both of them are wrong. We don't have the budget to do I'm gonna fix. So he's gonna change.
I mean, I know from day one, but that's why I said we wanted to tell him, and that's why I'm supporting his letter. He's at the previous council, supported, right? But what I'm saying is, he says to me, the previous councilor supported him, but actually, I think fine.
Because it didn't pass. It didn't pass.
See, now I can go to the meeting.